one thing that, in my opinion, are really hurting like the LEC behind the scenes now, especially, is how often staff hirings feels based on friendships rather than just results or merits.
Right, the best damn league show, full stop, returns. And obviously, depends what angle you're on. You know, if you're a hater, Lost and Tournaments is gone, back to business as usual. It's actually the LEC now. We've gotten the waiting room out the way. Or, if you loved all Lost and Tournaments, well, LEC's over. It was only a BO1 section. Who cares what the playoffs? It's all pretty much just standard at this point in time, innit? Probably G2 wins everything. I've spoiled the whole script there. But anyway, our guest for this episode is going to be Emtest, and he is someone who played for many years as an ADC around the scene, and actually last year worked with G2 Hell, which, if people don't know, is the female team of G2 Esports. So he's been working as a coach now. Now, if people have seen the last few episodes, the new meta devised by Monty, who at this point in time has just turned evil, I guess, is we're just going with what works in the YouTube algorithm. We're not, eschewing all like social conventions, doing it our own way. No, we're just gonna ride the wave of how plebs work on the internet. So welcome, plebs. If you keep watching now, Monty's plan worked, which is we start with the spiciest take of all. So scrap that whole good thing, build up. No, we're just gonna go straight into the bad. And Emtest, you've actually got the potentially spiciest take. So what is bad right now in League of Legends? What don't you like about LEC?
I mean, obviously there isn't just one thing, right, that you could mention. But at least to me, what stood out when I thought about these topics for the show is that one thing that, in my opinion, are really hurting like the LEC behind the scenes now, especially, is how often staff hirings feels based on friendships rather than just results or merits, right? I feel like people bring in their friends, and those friends then protect each other, and that kind of cycle continues forever. That's why seeing organizations like Navi, for example, Displit, right, trusting new people was really refreshing to me. It showed that fresh ideas can still get a chance, right, if teams are willing to take the risks. And just saying as well that they did so with 2 rookies, and also Paros, who is only in his second LEC year, right? I think the results, if you would take a bet on a group of people like this, you would not bet them to be doing as well as they're doing right now, right? And I think that has a lot to do with their coaching stuff, especially. I want to be clear in saying with this opinion is I'm obviously a coach myself, right? But I will be clear in saying I don't think I'm deserving to coach in LEC. I just think there's just a number of candidates that could do a great job if actually given the opportunity. And I feel like this nepotism kind of structure from a lot of teams is, we have to get rid of this somehow.
All right, let me ask you a clarifying question then. Obviously, look, we're not going to name the names, maybe I will, but you won't, of the people who shouldn't be hired and they were just from nepotism. But on the other side, what you just said there, I want to ask something a little bit extra about that, which is, do you think as a result, I mean, Navi could be a good example, are there actually a bunch of people you think at like ERL level where they already are good enough, but they don't get in because they're not friends with that person, or they don't have a big enough name or something? Do you think that's already the case?
I mean, I don't think I'll mention something maybe specific in this one, to be completely honest with you. But I definitely just think that the structure and kind of the atmosphere just feels very corporate based. Once again, you have to kind of be friends with the people within the scene to even get a shot in the first place, right? And if you're not friends with someone who doesn't know anyone, then it's very clear to me, at least, that you're not even given an opportunity, pretty much, at least for a very, very long time.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That's my take. Yeah.
Ooh, that's a really spicy one. Are we just talking about coaches, or are we talking about coaches and players? Or should we just go coaches first?
For this, I was thinking mainly about staff. It doesn't even have to be coaches.
Oh, right.
It could be managers, it could be analysts, it could be sport performance coaches, anything pretty much that goes into the staff. Could obviously be about players as well, but my main point was basically about staff.
Okay, so the last time I did it, so I'm literally, as we're talking, I'm trying to find the coaching interview document that we did last time. The last time I was working in the scene, which was 2.5 years ago. Ooh. Okay, I'll find it when Thorin is making his contribution to this point. But first thing I'm going to say is I completely agree with you. It's very, very obvious when you're working behind teams, and the main way you know this is the lack of transparency that teams have towards their recruiting processes, right? There's almost so one of the things when I was working as a coach. Is that I always did was we always had an open interview process, right? If you sent an application, you would at least get screened.
Right.
we didn't always interview every single person, but we tried to interview almost every single person that we could. I mean, I think on Heretics we got 160 applications, so we only ended up interviewing 90 people.
Fucking hell, 90 people. Fucking hell.
I mean, Thorin, I only interviewed 45, right? But because then we had other
Even
stuff.
so, come on.
But basically basically in order to do that, we made it very, very clear. Here's the process, right? We're gonna have first round. It's going to be just like a screening test for your case study test into like if you make the second round, you do a more like thorough coaching philosophy interview, and then the third interview is just like a final interview. It depends on the flavor, right?
All right.
But one of the things that always surprised me is that nobody else did any of that. And I'm going to be clear, like one of the reasons why as a coach, okay, it didn't end in the best way on Heretics, right? But like one of the things as a coach that one of the reasons I was able to be successful in my career is because you could just literally recruit the best coaches you could possibly imagine, because people just wouldn't touch a lot of people, any coach that they didn't know anything about. They would just work on references from other people, and you could literally hire like a 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 assistant coach or specialist in this area just by talking to them, just by interviewing them, just by having like competent conversations, right? And I think this is because teams, number one, don't know how to recruit. Like they don't know the right types of questions. You talk to people at the top of the companies. These aren't esports people, right? So sure, you have owners of teams, right? You had your Reggies and all of these people, right? Your Ocelots, right? Like these people maybe knew the scene, but not every CEO is like an ex-coach or an ex-player or something, right? They don't know how to hire a coach. Imagine you come into the scene backed by venture capitalist money, like venture capital money, like how are you going to decide who's a good coach, who is not a good coach, right? Like often you go for somebody who's the most vocal on social media, or like somebody else in the scene recommends. This is one of the reasons why the KC situation, from last year, you don't do your research, right? You just find somebody that was recommended by people. You don't look at the negative side, and sometimes it's a hit and miss. Sometimes you get the person that you want. Sometimes you don't do your due diligence, right, on the people you recruit, right? So number one issue, people don't know how to recruit. Number two issue, no good processes. Number three, no transparency. And I think this leads to a situation where you have really, really excellent coaches who just end up retiring, right? Because they never get a shot. Like you spend all of your time as a coach working up through the ERLs, and literally the only way you will get noticed by an LEC team is if you win EU Masters, or like you make the semi-finals of EU Masters, or you make the finals of EU Masters, right? Like there's no other way to, or you do a ton of content, right? Like I think one of the ways,
or you just like social climb, right? Like you also do that.
True.
But that doesn't seem like a viable strategy to me.
Yeah, I mean, not everyone can social climb, right? And I mean, that's the issue, right? Like, there's no way. Like the only people ask me for recommendations, like since I've retired, on what to do, and I just like message the DMs of the team. Like there's no other recommendation I can make, right? If there was a recommendation of, if there were some teams, like for instance in Brazil, they did open applications, I would say, okay, they're going to do an interview. Here's some recommendations for how you can make yourself look better in an interview, right? But I've never been able to give that kind of feedback because there's never any way to get there, any way to even throw your name into the ring, right? And for the teams that are able to scan properly and to do good recruitment, there's so much good talent out there that you can literally just skim off the top. Like it's so easy to find good assistant coaches, good strategic coaches, and I think this is one of the reasons why it's really important to champion good people when we see them, right? So I'm just using myself here, but I'm sure other people do this too, but I can only talk from my experience, which is we kind of have a league table, right? And if you make we interviewed like 90 plus people, right? So we have a ranking. If you're ranked 1 to 10, basically you ask me to do in any of the open application processes in NA or in EU, I will always champion you. I will always retweet you. I will always say this guy was really, really good, because I think those people deserve chances, right? But I would say that's kind of in the minority, and it's very, very obvious. Like I don't want to burn bridges simply because maybe a coach who was not very good 3 years ago is a better coach now through the experience and through all the rough times they've been through. But certainly in the LEC, there's like at least at least 3 head coaches who probably shouldn't be head coaches at the LEC. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going because maybe they're better, right? So maybe 2.5 years they weren't good enough. Years ago they weren't good enough, but now maybe they're better. But it's very hard to say because there's lack of transparency, and then finally there's lack of transparency for decision making as well. I remember the Poby decision, right? The Poby decision when Fnatic wanted to sign Poby. Grabs had to go and give his interview, and he was like the only one that took accountability on it. Nobody else in Fnatic took any responsibility for that decision, right? And then as soon as Poby worked out, everyone on Fnatic is we knew it. Oh, it's all about Fnatic. Oh, it's all about processes. The owners out there like Savetis. Oh yeah, it was. We have so many people behind the decision, and then all I'm there thinking is, as an observer, is like, sure, great. Like, where are those people when the decision was controversial? You're all willing to take credit now, but if it went badly, are those people getting fired? Is Grab someone who's getting fired? Like it's really incestuous, and until you have transparency, there's no fix to it. But yeah, I completely agree. Like, I mean, my career was based on being able to work, to hire good coaches, and I think that's to work with, and I think that's been the case for 10 years now, if not longer.
Whenever, go on.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to rephrase like something you said, Peter. It seems to me the way you were talking about heretics, like tryouting process back when you were there, right? It seems to me that you're saying that other teams might not have the same process or like even a process at all for these type of situations. Would you think that's like fair of me to say?
I think that's fair. Although let's be 100% fair, which is that we don't know because there's no transparency. Sure. But I will say that definitely I didn't see. I think I saw one other team. So I think would say 8 teams in the LEC definitely didn't do open tryouts, right? So 2 of them did, but like 8 of them didn't. So what is their process for hiring? How do you put people on a shortlist, right? How do you do all of these things? How can you be held accountable if you don't do any of your processes publicly? And let's say that maybe you don't do your processes publicly. Maybe you have like the best top secret process. Maybe let's a team that isn't in the league. Origin, okay, Origin with when I think it was the Fisher who was the GM. Way back in the day, like the when they were building their roster. Like it's not secret anymore, right? They made you do like an IQ test, and they made you do some other things if you wanted to apply like some online computer test. I won't go into it just in case it's secret, but they made you do some tests. Okay, great. You don't want to reveal that to the public? Fine, no problem. Maybe you have a top secret process like that. But you're telling me 8 teams in the LEC, knowing everything we know about how teams do their recruitment processes for players, you're telling me 8 teams have this kind of top secret process and they don't want to leak to anybody else? Oh, I find that really, really hard to believe. That's what I'm going to say, right? So that's what. So I agree with you. I think that generally transparency. You want to give a bit of transparency to fans, right? You don't want to give up all your trade secrets, right? But whenever there's very little transparency, there's the possibility that a lot of nepotism is at play, and let's just say that when there's a possibility, there are always situations where the right type of person, well, the wrong type of person, but the person who thrives well within those kind of situations. I don't want to call them social climbers, but maybe people whose skill set isn't to be the best coach on earth, right? Get opportunities to get into, right? And I mean, one of the things that I would say is from someone who's on the outside, if you've had success in ERLs and you're trying to break into the LEC, it's hard enough as a player, to break into LEC in a franchise system. But as a coach, as a GM, like good luck, man. Like good luck. You're not getting there, right? Like so that's all I would have to,
I mean, put it this way, as Peter says, we can't technically know what all these teams do. It's just unlikely, if you know what happened even a few years ago in these orgs, that they all just magically transformed and leveled up and all this. Most of them probably didn't. Most of them probably do something quite similar to before. So I can even actually confirm with one of Peter's own actual anecdotes that when he joined Evil Geniuses, at the time he was interviewing with the American orgs, he even told me that there was only something like a couple of orgs, EG was one of them, that even asked you to do things like a test for, what would you do in this game scenario. All the rest of them, it was just like like literally like a standard interview. And basically, if the guy liked you might just be in. So what you're getting at the end there, Peter, actually, I know what you mean. The problem is when you say social climate or networking, right? People who are bad at that or think that shouldn't have any factor assume it's a negative thing. It's actually a skill to be able to network and talk to people and get them like you. But the problem is this: you don't want that to be the main reason you got the gig, though. Like, I used to have a joke about a guy in Counter-Strike, right? It was a Brazilian coach called Peacemaker. And the thing is, he had one of those pages where he'd actually been in something mental like 18 teams in about 3 years. So fans would go, he must be a terrible coach. And I used to say, well, we can't really know that, but I'll tell you one thing we do know. He must be fucking amazing in the first 10 minutes of the interview. Like, he's killing it. Like, my joke used to be, he's the only one who's paid for, the full Microsoft publisher with the fucking PowerPoint presentation and the logos, and like, welcome to the Peacemaker Productions, a coaching journey in order to, like, because whatever he's doing is getting him in. But the problem is having a great initial conversation, which is a skill, is that enough to be a good coach? Probably not. Hence why maybe he had to move on 17 times or whatever. So I would say this: I always try to think when it comes to people's behaviour, and it's not one individual, it's like people en masse. Most people actually, this is why the study of anthropology exists. You can view them like animals where they have certain patterns of behaviour. And what do animals respond to? Things like environmental pressures. Where is the food? Where are the predators at? So what you have to do for humans is think similarly. Most people aren't trying to be sinister or dickheads. They're trying to do what they think is the best decision. So most people have responded to what we call incentives, things that are positives when they happen to give you positive feedback, or disincentives, like bad things, you stay away from those, etc. Very simple concept to understand. So one of the problems here is this: you guys nailed it by going one step back, which is, forget the coaches for a second. If the coaches themselves aren't that good and then they hire assistants that are just their mates and people that know, well, who's hiring the coaches? How has this problem been good at the top end? And the problem there is, I'm a big believer that if you have any level of power or authority, you have to then have a responsibility and accountability that comes with that, where essentially you get fired. If you make a decision and delegate to this guy and he does badly, maybe you don't immediately get fired, but that's a black mark against you and your decision making, and you have to be held accountable on some level. And that's one area already where we've got a massive problem, because I think to this day there either aren't the roles that are league specific, that mean you get fired for bad results and bad hiring in league, whether that's players or coaches. Like, there actually aren't that many of the people that I want. I want people, if anyone remembers way back in the day, this was originally how, if people get confused in season 8, but wait a minute, how come Dylan Falco was there, but also Young Buck was there? Because basically they did the role that people like Peter and Mac do now, where actually Young Buck technically was like director of the esports program or something like that, which is sort of like just being the super head coach, basically. But then Dylan Falco was like the drafting coach and didn't the coach on the ground, but he was more what we'd call now the coach. And then if you don't know, Peter sort of did this. That's how some of the people came up under him as well. And then actually, that's actually essentially the role Mac now does in Vitality. He's not out of Vitality, guys. He's no longer a coach. The joke is, even though it sounds like a meme, he is the coach of the coaches, but that's actually a good thing, because what that means is if he has a good eye for coaching stuff, he's also had a pretty decent track record, then the point is he can actually get fired if you do a bad job there. If you went back in the day to a Fnatic, a Cloud, I can tell you the real problem is there was no delegation. It was just the owner of the org. And by the way, the owner of the org doesn't fire himself when the league team fails. Or even worse, because he's the owner of the whole org of Cloud9 or Fnatic or whatever, he can even do some bullshit like, oh, my league team didn't work, but you know what, in Counter-Strike we just won a Grand Slam, and what's that? Oh, and in fucking Valorant we're killing it, we're the best entity. He always has some bullshit way to get out of it, so he doesn't get fired, unfortunately, if he does a bad job. So I'll go back to incentives. If we don't have a world where there's people who are specialists at knowing who to hire, because obviously owners aren't, that's just not even their job, by the way. We're lucky that some of them ever were pro players or in that world themselves and even knew enough to do the basic decisions. So if you think in the modern day, there's no sports team I'm aware of, with the exception of like one that's very got a bad reputation, the Dallas Cowboys in NFL. Every other team I'm aware of has general managers. The owners don't really pick the players anymore. No, in fact, the best owners are smart enough to know I shouldn't be the one who picks the players. I need distance from this. I just sign the checks, and this guy picks the players, and then I either... By the way, a bit like the Puppy thing. If he does a great job, I go, I hired him, by the way. Or if he does a bad job, I go, well, he's really let us all down and fire at us, even if I was telling him everything. So I also think what people don't realise is, in a world where the guy doing the hiring doesn't know the game, believe it or not, he's actually not responding negatively, except for the fact he can't be fired, when he hires people that are famous, or he likes them, or he's worked with them before. What he's actually doing there is, those are his only criteria he can go off. It's like, well, I know this guy, he used to be a great player, or he's He's a genius shot clock. By the way, if you don't know how, there's another thing, by the way, as a quick aside. If you actually want to get in on, if you want to exploit bullshit that isn't actually coaching skill, come on shows like this and make really great points or be really funny and charismatic. That alone, by the way, will get you Reddit people mention your fucking name. Then an owner will go, I'm the smart one who thought, I saw that show too. And then they fucking hire that. Shit like that, building up your reputation. By the way, it's why actually an example where nobody dislikes nepotism, even though these people are all my friends. You know, all the brilliant core streamers who are mega entertaining, they all get offered coaching jobs you wouldn't even believe they've turned down, homie. Like, what's that story where Cadrell got offered like the G2 gig for fuck's sake? Like, he never coached a fucking lick in his life. And they were just going to go, well, sounds banging on a core stream and it would be popular, so let's just give him the best team in Western League of Legends. Like, my point there is he should probably be getting like the fucking KCB job or something, you know, then if he proves himself again. Because I'll give you the comparison to what happened in sports. Sports used to be terrible for this too, because sports didn't have a lot of formalised coaching. It was just play the game basically like football. So what you did is you just hired a legendary football player that played for your team, and all he did was do a bullshit speech. Come on lads, get it together in the second half. That is what me and Manchester United's all about. And then you just go and win the game. The problem is you can't do that now because it's all advanced tactics, and if you don't have all the fucking scouting, you're going to get your ass torn up. So the problem in league is we're at the point where we've got all the advanced shit, but there's only a few people taking advantage of it. We've got a lot of people who are the guy like, I used to be a great support player, and that's it. You've got nothing else. And I also do think as well, another thing about accountability is this is where actually using a Korean or a Chinese system where you have the head coach, but then the drafting coach and the assistants, but they're all separate jobs, is also better, because back in the day, coach had barely become a role itself 10 years ago. So mostly you hire the coach and then he does just hire his mates, because they're normally usually people he either did another job with or used to be other players in his team. So what he's doing there is a really quick, probably a very low paid role, by the way. He's quickly hiring people he knows, but each of those jobs should be its own role too. Like as we're talking about here, in an ideal world, once you have the coaching job for a good team, maybe you hire one guy you've worked with because maybe you developed him, but the other roles, like Peter said, you just get the best people on the market. Which, by the way, to bring it all the way back, I agree with the central point in the specific of Na'Vi. Na'Vi has done that, bro. They have not only killed it, if you look who they've hired, but they've actually put together a complete coaching staff that would never be, if you'd said to one of these three people, hire your mates, the other two would never get hired. People don't know. They've done the whole breadth of Europe. They've got that guy, The Rock, who was the KCB coach. If people don't remember, if you love Los Ratones, yeah, they were fucking better than Los Ratones at the end of the ERL system. We're just supposed to pretend that didn't happen now. Then they have Go to One, who was the guy on BDS way back in LEC. Then he earned his way back up with that Gentlemates team, who was nobody until basically he made them relevant in the LFL. And then they got the Lopon guy, who was on like some other, he was on the, I think it was the Los Heretics that had like Kyoto or whatever. That was like one of the best ERL teams.
He was on Heretics with me.
Oh, Heretics itself, okay.
Yeah. But I would say, like, the thing about The Rock is that he's a guy who kind of worked his way up through the Greek scene, through many other scenes. I will say one thing about KC, is KC are very, very good at recruiting people from ERLs, right? Like, that's one of the reasons why their teams, like the KCB, not this year, but, you know, the KCB teams tend to have a lot of really good talent and a lot of good coaching talent, because they actually do have good processes. Like, one of the things I will say about KC is that they're very in tune with what's going on at the ERL level. So he's a guy that basically came to KCB from like not a very prestigious league. They've got Go to One, who you mentioned, Lopon, who was with me on Heretics, basically has this reputation as being this insane, like really, really good one-to-one coach. I would tell you this guy is incredible one-to-one coach. Nobody who's worked with him literally has a bad thing to say about him. And you know what happened in the off season? Heretics delayed on signing him, and Na'Vi were like, you know, if they're delayed, just come for us. Like, they knew they wanted him immediately. And you know, you can't poach a player. You can't poach it. It's not poaching, right? His contract was running out. He's not on the contract database. But they were like, oh, this team's a bit unsure. Quick, let's go and sign him now immediately. Let's go and grab him. Yes. And this kind of tells you that Na'Vi had a really, really smart plan over who they wanted to go to. Very targeted, very specific, very went out to grab it. And it, you know, just with how Na'Vi have recruited their players, willing to go really hard for the right person. And I'm not sure who the GM is on Na'Vi, but good job, whoever
Yeah,
it is, right?
killed it.
For both the players and the staff that you've had.
Oh yeah, the one other thing I was going to throw in as well, the one other detail we didn't mention about nepotism, another classic mistake, by the way, all goalers make this one all the time, is just listen to the fucking pro players. And then the pro player tells you by his old teammate or his fucking mate or the guy who DMs him all the fucking... There's a social climate part I don't like, by the way. Some guy who's just licking the arse of this pro all the fucking time who used to know him vaguely and then magically he gets a coaching job. Like, that's good. The odds that this player knows how he should be coached and who's a good coach is very low, I'll tell you right now. And even worse than that, the idea that you let the star player pick his mate, you've now just made a nightmare in that fucking team. Or imagine being the new player or the rookie or the player who fucks up the game and the star player's mate is the coach. You're never going to have anything, you're never going to have any semblance of accountability in that team. So, no, to bring it all back, like I said, I actually think if you look at the people on the Navi one, they all have the pedigree. Some of them are even shrewd picks. And then the reason why they have to have done a good job is look at the roster they have. Everyone now is going to tell me these players are all fire. If you went back, I didn't see many people do them, sadly, this split of power rankings before the season. There's no universe anyone would have had this roster even top 6. Fuck off. No, you wouldn't. Some of you probably even had SK over this one. Just stop lying. So I think they've killed it. Like, they haven't got any obvious superstar players beyond the people we now know are good. They've just killed it with the recruitment, with everything. So yeah, I think it's a great point in general, because it's more of an abstract point about the problems of LEC in the past years, isn't it? So yeah, good one. Okay. Navi, not nepotist in this case. Okay. Peter, what is your bad point?
Oh, so my bad point feeds a little bit into this, which is how rough were SK by the end of the season? Like, I mean, one of the things that people were really, really worried coming into the season is about how Wonder was going to perform, right? Because he'd been out for a decent amount of time. You know, the Heretics stuff. Oh man, that brings back really the last year in Heretics. Nobody should be judged on anything from that happened in that year, is what I would say. But basically, he'd done a lot of. He basically decided, okay, I'm going to climb solo queue to show people they can't criticize me. He was like 1700 LP on solo queue when the ladder closed, which is what was 1700 LP last year? It was like top 50, top 30. I can't remember. This year it's inflated LP, but last year anyway. Point is, he was one of the top 2 or 3 top laners in solo queue and top 50 overall, let's say, last year. So he went and grinded a ton of solo queue. He's always had that game knowledge. Like, Wonder, more than any other player I've worked with, except maybe Impact, has that innate game knowledge. You know, it's just something you can't really teach. It's something you have to experience for 5 years at the top level, and he never forgot that. But he's just a natural in that area, and he's playing insanely well, right? Like, Wonder is one of the best tops in the league. His laning stats are incredible. He's like team fighting well. He's flanking well. He's side laning well. But what on earth is going on in the rest of this team, man? Like, I mean, it's a really, really rough one. You know, I like. SK, I wasn't that high on SK at the start of the year, but it's been really rough. And you know, the person who's most disappointed me of anyone on that team is Mickey. You know, like, and not just for his recruitment. Like, Mickey, his performance compared to last year has gone down a lot. And I'm not sure what the solution is to this, right? Because they built this team, right? This is Mickey's team, right? So who are you going to replace on this team? Are you going to replace Leader? Well, you already knew who Leader was, right? At the start of the year, and you chose to recruit him. When he's on his picks, he didn't even play badly, right? And Leader's picks are not just melee champions. He's also really good on Rice, right? Like, he's always been insane on Rice, as his majors. You know, are you going to go and kick Skeens? Are you going to go and kick Yopper? Yopper, like, actually, it looks like he has potential, you know, their AD carry, right? So what are the changes you make for this team, right? What is the improvement path, right? Because you should have a ton of experience already coming into the season, and yet, I mean, I'm just looking at the league table. So people have done various league tables, but if you have a league table that's just the LEC teams, SK are 2-7. They're the bottom team in the entire league. I think they only have I think they beat Shifters, and who was the other LEC team they beat? I can't remember who the other. But they only have 2 wins. Fnatic. Yeah, okay. So actually, ironically, in that league table, Shifters are 8th, Fnatic are 9th, SK are 10th, right? So SK have beaten the number 8 team, the number 9 team. They've beaten the two ERL teams, and that's it, right? So what's your path up from here? And it looks really, really well. I mean, I don't think they're going to make any swaps now. Obviously, like, this is a decision you've made, right? But this is a roster. I don't want to call it nepotism, but it's a roster that has some flaws in how it's constructed. Number one is what I say. Number two, I feel really bad for Wonder, man. Like holy moly, to go from some of the projects he's been a part of into this is really, really rough, right? So yeah, like what I would say is SK maybe have flown under the radar a bit for how rough it's been, but it's worse than you think it is, right? Like watching their games, and yeah, hopefully they grind hard going into summer and we see what happens, right? But I'd say Wonder really, really smurfing, like on a team man.
I mean, first of all, I completely agree with you. I think you can definitely like make arguments that SK's offseason, like the way they handled this decision, right, was maybe not it. Then again, if I'm like putting myself in their shoes, I'm thinking, okay, at least I'm speculating, right? But if I'm a player and I hear that I can go to SK or I can stay in like a top ARL, I'm probably not going to SK. I'm probably just going to a top ARL and just trying to do good there, right? So for me, it feels like, at least from an outside perspective, that SK maybe doesn't have a lot of options already. Like going into off-season, I think the motivation to join that team is probably very low. So when an superstar player like Mickey X that has like really good history, right, like shows up and say, hey, let me just create a team with my friends and it's gonna be good content, we're gonna do this, blah 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 blah, I could understand a GM at SK like actually accepting that idea. And to be honest, I think on paper, for sure, it doesn't look like the best, but it also doesn't look like the worst either, right? Now, again, I'm just speculating, right? But I'm thinking if maybe you said that you weren't like assured by Mickey's performance, right, in this team. I'm wondering if it's a problem for him to actually be able to be that type of like veteran in the team or like leadership type of like player within this specific team, right? Because when you look at it, you have Skeens, who definitely has like a lot of history but hasn't been nearly the star player that Mickey is. You have Leader as well that hasn't been in LEC and for a long time and definitely like has to improve like a lot, right? You have Yoppa, who just recently entered LEC. So I'm just thinking if it's maybe just too much pressure for him to actually like be able to both handle his own, but also start teaching these three other players how to behave in game, how to behave outside game. That is just like one thing that I'm just thinking about when you were talking about this, right? Secondly, you asked what changes to make. I mean, yeah. I don't know. I guess like Leader started playing mages, right? It doesn't look convincing yet. Maybe you can just cope and say they need more time. But I agree with you. It definitely has not been an early good start for SK, that's for sure.
Yeah, the problem I have with this team is simple. First of all, I actually still think if you look at the roster, you're like, surely they should have been in like a tiebreaker to, be in the actual playoffs or something. Like you look at the roster, there's a world where if some of this had worked out better, I think they could have been like the 7th or 8th best team. I don't think that's some like crazy comment. The problem is, it's not even that everyone played badly, but I'll tell you what, they had a fucking terrible team identity. And also, one thing you're pointing out with the Mickey X thing, since it is his whole project and he handpicked some of these people, and even the rumour goes, like it was leaked, that he could have just himself gone as a support player to Carmine Corp, which now looks like one of the dumbest decisions ever. Because if you even think about it, right, one of the few things Mickey X did do this split is the one person who can't complain about this team fucking hell is Leader, by the way. Because first of all, most of the time they did pick his champions, and Mickey X actually fucking camped the shit out of his lane loads of the games and tried to get him ahead and tried to get him kill opportunities. So like, if you're Leader, you got absolutely a fair crack of the whip on this one, mate. You can't complain at all. You even had Mickey's old mate Duffman there as one of the coaches. I'm sure they must have played to you. But two things. One thing Mickey X has never done in his career, but I think I know why now, is he's never had any say over the roster and he's never been a shot caller in his teams. He really was the fucking guy. People don't know Hillesang's also like this. Hillesang barely talks in the game. He just fucking goes in and makes the play, and then you figure out later on like what he meant, and you learn to adapt to him, not the other way around. It's not him like guiding you into the play. You just learn when he might make a play. Mickey X was a player like that. Like the joke is, if Mickey X had bad roster in the past, he just suffered in silence. He's just the guy who just shut up and then just kept playing and hope he hit some insane pike fucking hook or something. Like that's who he was as a player. So if you are going to have this squad, I would feel way better about this squad if you were some like legendary shot calling support and your whole thing was like, right, basically, I don't need the best players, but if you give me like, I've played with Leader, I'll guide him as to how he's going to play in the middle. Wonder's coming back, why would you know how to play off it? That would make a lot of sense. When I looked at this roster, the first problem I had was, where the fuck is the captain in this team? Like, who's it going to be? Like, as far as I can tell, there isn't one. You've got vets who just do their shit. Leader's doing whatever. The joke with Leader is you don't want him talking. He's not even as toxic as people think. Because remember, 99% of people think toxic means he wrote something at me. In a team, they don't don't do that, you idiot. That's in solo queue. He's just fucking Norwegian, so he just whines, which guess what? I can handle that. I come from England, mate. Wine is the way of communication. You start by complaining about the weather, your job, fucking what's your stomach like, and then you get onto all the good shit. So I can handle that. But for some people, that'd be a bit of a bummer. I just feel like that a lot of things were missed in this team, and they really did think you just plug in good players and they'll just do well. And also, lastly, I'll go even one step further, Peter. If I have Leader as my mid laner, I'm never doing a fucking like Orient Sol pick. Why am I going to waste my time on that shit? I'm just only doing his picks all day long. We're just 24/7 chain Yone into fucking Akali, into anything. You can have the Echo if you want. I don't give a fuck, mate. You are Leader. All you're here to do is be Leader. Don't ever give me a Victor game. You're not allowed to play. You know what? You're banned from that. You're banned from fucking Oriana. You don't even get to play them. Never in a million years. So I don't even know why they ever give many games off those, mate. Because I'm with you. I actually think he had some good games on his champions. He had some times where there was moments you could believe that they could win the game. The problem also is they tried to pretend they're actually the best team in the league, which they're not. So I don't know. I think it was terrible all in all, mate.
I'm going to put the conspiracy hat on.
Go
right?
on.
So to me, the thing which... So this is... I don't have any behind-the-scenes knowledge, right? But to me, this looks like a team where Mickey obviously is the face of the team, right? He's the one who is like, GM responsibility, I built this team, therefore I have responsibility for this team. Okay, so he's the one who argued for a leader. So he's like, okay, I have to make this work because otherwise it's going to reflect badly on my team building. Yeah. I'm the one who's accountable. But what made Mickey insane, right? Like I've talked about this on the show, right? When I talk to Asian coaches, there are two players that they watch historically: Caps and Mickey, right? And why Mickey? Creative with how he wards. He's flexible on the map. He knows when to open side. He knows how to be creative. He's not the big shot caller, but you give him a map state and he can find a number of creative solutions to get you out of that map state, right? But now he's on a team where he has responsibility for every single... He's brought his mates in, so he has to work for his mates, right? And that takes away all your freedom. If you even have a little bit of that in the back of your mind, you can't be the person who you are supposed to be, right? And it looks like, especially in the early game where he's just camping mid all the time, right? Like it looks like he's feeling that pressure or he's under that pressure, and that stops him being the player that we know he can be, right? And to me that's a problem, right? And again, one of the reasons why so few players put their face to these kind of projects, right? Because even if they have a lot of say behind the scenes, you don't have that pressure. You can then focus on your own performance. But he looks like his position and what happened in the offseason reflects on his individual performance. And that's what I for me.
Also, the other thing as well about this is there is a key difference between these two statements. I have been in teams where they recruited the wrong teammates. I should recruit the teammates. You see, the gap between those two, and that seemed like it's really connected. It isn't. There's an enormous chasm there. Like, my obvious question would be, well, since you didn't pick the teammates, how the fuck do you know what teammates you should pick and how they should make a squad? Like, you don't. So I think he made a mistake, actually, by taking on all that responsibility. Like I said earlier, look, people might say it's hindsight. It's hindsight like a motherfucker. If he'd have had Busio's spot on Carmine Corp, one, the fucking Kiahu guy, based on how he played leader, would be the MVP of the whole league. Like, he just had the greatest rookie split of all time. And then secondly, since he also used to do what Busio himself did on FlyQuest, where you do the sneak into the fucking second jungler for the top laner, Kana would also be like literally the Smurf god of the whole... He'd be at the top of the league. The dumbest thing is, Mickey X, here's what you really wanted, mate. You didn't really want to play with your friends and hope you made it. You wanted the same as you did in Fnatic, to get revenge on Fnatic and G2 and show them they were wrong for picking the players. You'd have done that in KC, you lunatic. Instead, you made some weird Frankenstein's monster of like a player who was a prospect 6 or 7 years ago, Old Man Wonder, who, by the way, actually played pretty well, I've got to say. I also feel bad for him, mate, because if you pop him into like Navi or something, he'd also be having a great split and everyone would be like, wow, Wonder's back, great. Wow, he still got it. We all misunderstood him when he was in Heretics. Like, sadly, now he will just be remembered as like, weren't you in that Mickey X team that didn't even make playoffs? Like, yeah, it's actually, it's splashed back on everyone, mate. And the worst thing, as you guys nailed, is this is one of the only teams where you can't even just be cynical and go, just replace this player. It's like, at this point, you either just believe the project can work a second time, or you have to sort of like wipe the deck of half the team, don't you? Like, at this point, it's like, what we do now, Mickey? Pick another 3 teammates. What is this? Like, I don't know. It's just bad. And I also feel bad for the Oppa guy, because again, you'll just be remembered as you were on the failed team, even though you had some okay games. You weren't the best team to do it on, mate.
I mean, I feel as well we're kind of robbed of Mickey as well. Like, then to me, this is the tragedy, right? Like, Mickey is one of the few international level players that we have in Europe, and he's like stuck on this. I mean, of his own doing, right? I'm not
Yeah, of
excusing
course,
it, right?
no, it's true.
But like, I don't get to see Mickey this year. Like, fucking hell, man, that's a tragedy.
Absolutely.
I mean, like in his like maybe slight defense, and I'm also putting on my conspiracy hat here,
Go on.
right? But I'm just saying, like, he spent 2 years at G2, right? They had a great time, and then he obviously got replaced, or he decided to leave. I actually don't know what happened there, right? But they felt that they needed changes, so changes happened. Then he joined Fnatic, and I obviously don't have inside information here or anything, but just from whatever has been available, like to public, it seems like he had a fucking awful time there. It seems like he's the worst year of his career, maybe, like mentally wise, right? So I'm just thinking, from his perspective again, maybe he was thought after that Fnatic time. It's like, okay, I don't know how much time I have left to like in me to do this. So either I just do my own shit now, or I just peace out,
Sure.
right? And maybe that's why that's like the reasoning why he would decline like KC offer, even though that's like very good for him, right?
Yeah.
And obviously now it's very easy to say like, okay, you obviously fucked up here, mate, right? And I think what you guys talked about previously here as well is like very fair, right? But I think that could like potentially be a reason why he decided to like just create his own team, right, on his own terms, pretty much.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's more than fair. I mean, like, just to fill people in who don't know the background information, this is public information now. But Mickey has basically talked about how they replaced him before Worlds, or like they kind of told him he was already out on G2, the roster with Yike and all of those people, you know, before they'd even gone to Worlds. And Fnatic, like, I mean, I don't have to give you a insight on that, right? Like, even Grabs and other people within Fnatic, if you'd have gone publicly and said last year like the environment was complete shit. So I think that's a fair context. It is a fair context, but you know, for fixing the SK problem, I don't know how it does it. Don't know how I can get the Mickey that I enjoyed watching back. But yeah, no, you're more than correct, right? Like, I mean, if you've been through what Mickey's been through the last 2 years, it's very fair that he would want to do a project like that. For sure.
It's also, as you mentioned, right, if it is actually that problem that he cannot be as creative as he usually is, right, because he has a lot of like other responsibilities that maybe he's not used to. That's also, it's very hard to answer the question, like, what do you actually fix? Because obviously, if you have a teammate with Mickey and 4 friends, you're not suddenly just gonna kick 2 friends and bringing 2 like random new players, right? I think the decision definitely is like made, and I just hope for Mickey and like for my sake as well, because I love watching Mickey play. I think he's fucking great when he's able to do something. I just hope they can find some way to make it so that he can actually like do something. But it seems very hard with the type of players that you actually have, right?
Yeah. Oh, by the way, that's another thing as well. If you're Skeens and Yopper, like, you're not on the hot seat, are you? You're not fucking wondering leaders. So probably if you do badly, you'll definitely go Skeens. You've had your chance already, mate. And Yopper, you just have to make it. Otherwise, everyone's going to say your shit, because is Mickey really just going to kick Wonder and leader? Probably not. So there's that pressure too, which is somewhat unreasonable, I think, for a rookie ADC. Also, I'll tell you what. Now everyone understands all those years of like, why does Fnatic just stay with Razork and Humanoid? Because the grass isn't always fucking greener, is it? Tell you what, those guys trip over and win 5 or 6 games every round of robin. What we're talking about, like, they are talented. You might think there's all sorts of flaws, but you're only looking at the flaws. There's plenty of other people don't have those flaws and have none of their upside as well, as we've just discovered in SK Gaming. I'd say all of this with love and affection for Mickey X, but that's why I'm saying it. This is an intervention. We need to get you help, mate. Get the fuck off. You need that. Take the remote control off you. You're trash at deciding what shows to put on. You're just supposed to watch the shows and make insightful comments. That's what your job in the friend group is. So anyway, now we go to my bad point. Mine's easy. I can't even believe no one else thought to do this one. Bro, it has to be fucking shifters. Just from top to bottom. Because I actually do low-key think this isn't even a bad roster. In fact, I even think some of the scouting's pretty decent. Like, I did see games from the paddock guy that looked sick. I think bringing Trimby back was a really shrewd move. I actually do think he's a person who's obviously LEC talent and clearly can have bigger impact on the team than just playing support. I actually do think the fucking... Despite all the memes I've said online, actually this is an underperformance for Nuke. He is a much better mid laner than this. He never ever should be outside of fucking playoffs. Like, my problem is I don't think he's a champion. He still should be in like the 4th or 5th best team at worst. You also look at the whole roster, like, I don't even think there's even any weak spot. No player is bad on this roster, in my opinion. Then you go look how they played. They were 1 game from actually being in the playoffs. Well, just go watch the fucking Los Ratones game. That was the most gifted game of all fucking time. They had 2 mega threats throws in that one game. And then also, if you watch them throughout the whole split, I'll tell you the difference between Shifters and Heretics. Heretics had a million times it was a close game and they just pulled it out. Shifters, every time they were there, they just fucking threw the game and just tossed it away. It's why, even though it was that one Los Ratones game, that wasn't, I don't think that was just it. I think that was Nuke reacting because this is like a habitual problem that team has. And that was like the worst example of it. So hence it broke the dam and he went crazy. I don't think it was really about that 1B or 1 because I saw that pattern play out. So even though, like, I certainly wouldn't have had them as a top team, but I also do think they should have been middle of the pack. I think they even at times showed glimpses of that. I don't even hate the roster, by the way. I could easily see you could go in the next split and figure some of this out, but that's why they're just my bad. I didn't even put it as ugly. I just think it's bad the way it all played out. I almost couldn't think of a worse way this could play out for this squad. I thought it was going to be decent. What do you think, Emtest?
I mean, to be honest, this just gets me thinking of like another topic that I wanted to bring, but I didn't. And I completely agree with you that the players are definitely like not bad. But I'm just looking at, I don't know, bro. I keep seeing teams like just kind of preferring to import rather like not unknown players. They could for sure like be good. But to me, for sure in the AD carry pool, I think there's for sure like prospects that you could bring up. I could for sure like mention like.
I mean, Execute, there's a bunch of people, right? There's a bunch of guys out there, right?
For sure. And I think one thing that you might missing here as well, this is just my philosophy of coaching. Maybe it's not everyone's like cup of tea, but to me at least, I really value knowing that my team will actually vibe a lot together and they will genuinely enjoy spending time with each other. I don't know how possible that is when you bring in 2 Koreans on a completely fresh roster and you just fly them over to Berlin or wherever you're like situated, right? So to me, if you're starting then to lose, and especially if you're starting off with like rocky losses where you like throw in the game, I think especially for someone that is like Korean, maybe doesn't have anyone else to talk to except for your friends online and maybe Rooster if they actually know each other, right? I think that could easily like get into your head like really, really quickly. And if that happens once, it's fine. If it happens twice, you're for sure like starting to doubt your decisions. And if it happens a third time, then I think your mental is for sure like in a gutter. And if with no one else to like bring you out of that, because maybe you don't speak English well or you're not like accustomed to the environment there, you start like missing home. Like I think that could for sure like have a really big impact. I definitely don't. I think the roster could for sure have made playoffs. I don't believe they would have done more than that per se, but obviously it's easy for me to say it now as well, right, with the results in hand. But I think that definitely can like play a huge factor, especially if you're beginning the split with like losing a bunch in like a really odd way, like throwing a tanky gold lead, right?
Wow, I mean, you know things are rough when Thorin is defending Nuke on the show. That's what I'll say. But yeah, no, I fully agree with you. Look, the problem that shifters have, okay, is that this is okay. So they brought Trimby back from Brazil. For people that don't know, Trimby in Brazil was a massive success. Basically his org, the team he was on, the 4 players and the coaching staff are all exactly the same. And this team went from being like one of the best teams in the history of Brazil, doing really well at Worlds, beating international competition, pushing other teams close, to basically being a complete mess, which tells you that the only thing that they lost was Trimby. And Trimby, we know because they publish all the, not all the voice comms, but they do a lot of voice comms, that Trimby was a massive voice on that team, right? So we know exactly what Trimby is contributing to the team. And clearly bringing him back for a team that sometimes lacked direction last year is a smart decision, right? This was the major issue with Paris, right? Like Paris wasn't able to stamp his authority on the game in the mid game, and it looked really, really rough at times, right? So they brought somebody in to cover that shortcoming. Not a bad decision, right? But I think the problem that you have is exactly what Emtest is saying. We're bringing in the problems haven't been made this off season. They've been made long term off season, right? You spent all of that money on Bukada. You can't replace Bukada. There are like promising junglers in ERLs that you could have brought in, but when you've paid 250k for this guy, like this guy is staying, right? You try to go and replace him after one split to your management as striker, like it's just not happening, right? Like there's no way. So you're stuck with this guy. You brought Rooster in. Rooster was supposed to be your top prospect, and I don't want to say that all Koreans are necessarily going to be rough adjusting, right? But basically, I've worked with 3 Koreans over the course of my year, right? Impact, who's basically a freak of nature, right? Like, I mean, Impact is. I don't think he really he counts. Let's put it that way. But sometimes when I was working with players like Ruby and Ignat, sometimes it would be very hard when things were going rough to involve them in the team environment, in the team activity, because often it's a cultural thing, right? It's finding things which are culturally, which everyone can go and have fun together, go and do things together. Sometimes it's also hard to express. Okay, so in Korean culture and in certain East Asian cultures, it's harder to express your weakness. I would say, like, keeping face is very important. Like, working with a sports psychologist, for instance, is not something which necessarily comes naturally to a lot of players.
You can even apply it as a stigma around it, right?
Yeah, it does. Now, I'm not, obviously individual players. I don't want to make stereotypes about the whole region, right? But it's, as a general rule, it's harder for that kind of process to work because people have less experience with working with a sports psychologist. People have less experience, and sometimes you're far from home, you get homesick. It's difficult, right? I'm not saying it can't be fixed, but that's always a risk you have when you're bringing up a player. So why do I mention this? Because Rooster is like not the player he was in Korea, right? Like, Rooster looks fucking miserable all the time. You go and watch this guy's voice cam. Have you ever seen this guy smile? Like, ever? Like, and I mean, that's not like a criticism on him. It's just clearly he hates his life. No, I'm sorry, he hates his life in Berlin. He hates his experience in Berlin. It's just not fun, right? And this guy's a guy that's clearly not enjoying himself. And he was considered one of the top prospects back in Korea. But what BDS have done, BDS, is they've recruited this top prospect and haven't put the environment around him where he can thrive and be happy and have fun. And he's not like Impact, who can create his own fun no matter what, right? Because he's a rookie, right? So I mean, this is kind of the situation that they're in. It's I mean, the team should be doing better. I mean, but you asked me what the problems are on this roster, and I think Paddock has. He hasn't been perfect, but he's shown signs. But to me, the issues of Bukado, like, I don't think he's progressed enough to justify his price tag and to justify his spot, to be honest. But also Rooster, like, I mean, this guy's not the same player that you recruited, but you recruited this player without putting the systems in place to find success, right? And you have to know when to cut your losses. And I'll say I'm not guilt-free from this, right? Like, there's a reason why Ruby, when he was on Unicorns of Love, right, with Sheepy, he had a really good time on. He was a really insane player in EOLs on Unicorns of Love, right? But for whatever reason, when he was on Heretics, he wasn't able to find success. But at least we knew, okay, the project, we're not the right environment for this player to find success. So then you move on, right? And I'm not sure whether shifters are able to move on now, are able to go and make the decision. But basically, I don't think anyone's going to make any changes before next split. But honestly, as sad as it is to say, I think, like, if they have another poor performance in spring, they should just swap Rooster out. Like, I think the guy has potential. I think he should go back to Korea. He'll find success again in LCKCL. He was just really good in LCKCL, right? But clearly, like, on this team, this is a player who is, he may be one of the worst. He is the worst stop in the league. No, there's a couple worse. But instead of signing this guy, imagine by signing Rooster, look at what BDS gave away. Well, look at what Shifters gave away. You had the best crop of top laners coming up. You had Nak, you had Mainta, you had even Emperor. Like, I think Emperor is doing rough on Fnatic, but you had Emperor you could have signed. You had Tracing you could have signed. You had first choice all of these guys, and you had so little faith in them that you went and signed Rooster. And, like, I mean, to me, that's a long-term issue with their roster building. But let's be clear, this crop of top laners, like, Carlson isn't even in the LEC, right?
Yeah, true.
Like, this crop of top laners, there's so much you could have had here, and you chose to import. Sometimes importing is good. Importing is good if you find literally no talent. Like, maybe the mid lane pool in Europe isn't that strong right now, so maybe I can see why you would justify signing a mid laner. But you signed an import top laner, took a massive risk in, like, the worst possible split that you could possibly import. It's like, imagine you sign a Korean mid laner on the year that Larson, Nemesis, Abadage, and Humanoid came into the league, right? And you decided to import instead of signing one of those guys. that would be a generational fumble. And basically, what BDS have done is a generational fumble, both in signing their jungler and importing when you had that talent in the ERLs, in that position.
I completely agree with you. I think that was very well spoken.
Okay, let's go on now to the good portion. So what is actually good at the moment, Emtest? What do you like?
Okay, so I think just from watching last year's winter split, to be honest, I had very low interest in actually watching it. It was really hard to like force myself to do it, even though I love watching League and I love watching every different region. But I will say that this like format, the format we can speak about, right? But the winter split, basically, the winter split 2025, honestly felt really low impact for me. I wasn't more or less interested since the stakes were like quite low, and it just felt overall it's very uninteresting. It was very hard to watch, and I will say that I don't agree with everything that Riot is doing or LEC is doing to like try to improve their product, right? But I think that the LEC Versus actually made things more interesting. Obviously, Lost Tones played a huge part in that, right? But I think since franchising, there isn't a real way to actually compare like a top ARL team to an LC team. And I think this was a good step towards in that regard, right? Again, I'll be the first to say I don't love everything that Riot does, but I do respect the fact that they're at least trying new formats instead of just letting LC like kind of stagnate, right? Even if it's not perfect, I think experimentation during a split of less stakes like this feels better than doing nothing. That's the good part for me.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's hard to replicate though. And the reason I say it's hard to replicate is how do you make winter split mean something? And basically, Los Ratones, they've already said multiple times before the split started and last year that this project is finished, right? Like as soon as they're eliminated, it's finished. So your regular season, I may not like that they're in the league, but you can't deny that it was good viewing because frankly, you knew that if these guys had lost, that was it. They were, that was it. They're gone. And I mean, I don't know how you would replicate that with a different team because if you brought this in at the start of the year, like let's say you had a sensible promotion system, right? Like you wanted to have the two best ERL teams. So what you would have done is you move EMEA Masters to like an LCK Cup. So the EMEA Master season starts in December, and then the two finalists promote, and then you'd have a more balanced format. Then you'd actually see the two ERL teams coming in, but you wouldn't have had the same stakes. You'd have been able to laugh at the LEC teams. You'd have been able to laugh that they've lost the ERL teams. But I think part of the reason why this split, to me, has been interesting is because the stakes were so high, and I don't know how you would replicate those stakes. I do wish that they would do more things, more ERL teams, ERL things like this. I mean, I think the best system, like in the future, if you don't want to do a format like this, you force the bottom two teams to go and play an EMEA Masters or something. You like make them humiliate themselves in front of the world by going and playing against these ERL teams. I don't know what you do, but it's very hard for me to find a way that you can replicate this to have your regular season mean more. So I agree that it was good viewing, but I don't know how you can replicate it.
I actually agree with you. Go on.
No, I will just say, like, I do agree with you. I don't sit on like all the answers on actually like how to make it better, right? So I think you definitely like have a point, Peter. I think for me at least, I think winter can like become interesting, but it's just a matter of it has to have like real consequences and also like a clear identity. I feel like right now we're just kind of playing. I feel like winter is just like a pre-season to the actual real shit that starts in summer and towards Worlds, right?
Yes.
I don't know what exactly it will be, but basically just like give it more stakes, make it feel like a mini tournament instead of just like split one pretty much. This is what they did this year. Sure, maybe it's not gonna work other years with Lost Tones out, right? And maybe if you know that winter's always gonna be experimental, you can actually like commit harder to that and like lean into early season chaos with like faster pacing, maybe more player storytelling. I don't know if that would even work, if that's like even interesting enough, right? But things like this where you're just kind of committing to the chaos, to me at least, could maybe be a potential angle.
Sorry, could I just one question for this? Would you do this in first split or would you do it in the summer split?
No, I would definitely probably stick to this in the first split and not because summer feels like it actually has like meaning to me,
Yeah.
anyways, right? So I think definitely like keep it for winter because it feels like the stakes are always so low, anyways.
The main problem is, forget what you call it, whether you call it winter, it used to be spring split. People have always agreed in League that like the first split just doesn't feel like it matters. I mean, even when spring split was the first split and it used to qualify you to MSI, only the winner used to go. So everyone except the winner was like, well, for us, it doesn't really matter. Like, who cares? Everyone knows you only have to get your roster together by the summer. Also, people actually did. I mean, the joke is they literally did this in the LPL where people just, I just took the first 2 weeks off every year. But like, people never treated the first split like it was a true championship. They didn't treat it like it's tennis and this is a grand slam and you want to win each one for your legacy. It was more like this is the experimental split. So here's the thing. I totally agree in this regard. One, literally Los Ratones did make it way more exciting. I mean, the joke is even if you don't like them, it was the hate watch fucking extravaganza of the year, wasn't it? You were tuning in every game hoping they'd go 0-9, whatever, or they'd lose to SK or something funny like that, weren't you? So even that angle got people interested. And I do actually agree also that the one lesson I think you can take from this, Peter hinted at it and you sort of suggested it, is you could also just make it, look, maybe this is even how you thread the needle on that impossible, but we have franchising, it's already established and people spent hundreds of $millions, but we also need to have non-franchise teams in to make it exciting. Maybe you have to have something like there are only 2 LEC splits and the first split some sort of experimental tournament like this every time. That would be fine as long as you frame it that way, that it isn't LEC. The obvious problem, unfortunately, is this is where having that global system sort of screwed you, because if there was no first stand, there's not even a reason to complain about this. It can just be our version of the Kesper Cup or something, or Demacia Cup or some weird shit like that, right? The real problem is, because in theory, if you win it, it's first stand and it connects into the overall ecosystem, that makes it LEC again, no matter what they tell you. By the way, the people telling me that shit, it's not LEC though, is it? It's LEC Versus. Then why'd you go to first stand, you fucking moron? What, you mean if KCB somehow by some miracle actually won first stand, we'd all go, but that's not even real, is it? Like, did somebody stood there with the championship, wouldn't they? It's not. So already you can see we've got a messaging problem. But I do agree. I do think this was way better than almost every other winter split. It didn't have that feeling of like, who cares if you didn't win, or who cares if you came seventh? You can get it together, make the roster move before the summer, or fire the guy who failed as a rookie in split one. It did feel more like this was its own tournament and people cared. The problem is, like Peter says there, I do think there's a hard problem doing it again, though. Like, 90% of the interest was Los Ratones. Notice, no one goes, and I'm so glad KCB was in the league. No one gives a flying fuck about that, mate. The only thing KCB did of interest was actually beat Los Ratones early and put them deeper in the hole. Like, that's about it. That's the only impact they had on the fucking league. Then you've got to add in as well, sadly, KCB didn't even do what Los Ratones did. Los Ratones did what we're talking about, which is how good would the top ERL teams. Well, the real KCB from last year would have been awesome. Problem is that Mainta's gone already, and they didn't even put the same roster in, did they? X-Kick isn't here, etc. So there's only one fucking player basically came up, and that team wasn't the same, and wasn't the same quality. By the way, the idea of Peter has, which is one we've had a long time ago because of NLB and Korean esports, and people don't know, that what you really want to see, realistically, even though it's fun, you don't really want to see Los Ratones play all the top teams, because there's a reason why they're the top teams. They all have way bigger resources, and the reason why it's a franchise league. What you really want to know is what everyone wanted to know last year. Right, when Los Ratones is the best team in the EMEA Masters, when KCB is the winner of the EMEA Masters, what would happen if they played the bottom 4 or 5 teams in the LEC? That's what you want to know, because actually it ties into point 1 of this show. If you find out that actually in real series they would have beaten those teams, you can now ask questions like, wait a minute, are these GMs even doing anything right in the league? Like, actually, maybe I thought you were decent for being 7th in LEC, but actually you would have lost BO5s to the ERL teams. That would actually make you question it. By the way, I'll even tie into what Peter said there. I even think that would be a clever idea, by the way. Still have it be franchised, but take the bottom 2 to 4 teams and force them to play in EMEA. They go straight in the bracket, Peter, because here's why. There's a double side. If you lose it, more pressure on you, mate. Now you're losing the fucking ARL teams. But there's actually an upside people wouldn't think of, Peter. What if everyone laughs at you like they did in past teams at the bottom, and they go, this team would get destroyed? What if you actually went and won EMEA then? And you were like, oh yeah, we're shit compared to LEC. Like, we can't beat Vitality and GX and fucking... But actually, you know what? You put us against the LFL champ, maybe we can cook. Maybe actually we would beat that team, and suddenly we get a bit of respect ourselves that we're not trash, because that is what the NLB system did. If people don't know, most times the actual LGN team did win the matches, and they were all the teams at the end of the playoffs. I even think that would have its own value. The problem is, though, this is why, by the way, even though I don't think it is 100% over, it's 99% over, the smartest move at the end Los Ratones did was pretend like it's 100% over, because now you've put such fanfare on, I'll never forget you. Oh, my heart will go on. All that shit. Because you've done all that, this is the last chance you have to emotionally make people like, come on, Riot, you've got to do something. They're all retiring. Like, that's the best way to put the pressure. Because unfortunately, it's not even just Los Ratones, is it? Like, let's be real. If tomorrow Reckless says he's retired and then Nemesis goes and joins fucking some team in the LEC, the Los Ratones is over, mate. Like, we're not watching this for Baus and fucking Velia and insert 2 other players. Like, a big part of it is the hype of, like, Reckless is one of the most legendary players ever and popular, and Nemesis always should have been in the LEC. I even think Nemesis, by the way, basically fucking secretly boosted that whole project. The guy could have been on, like, any of about 7 LEC teams every single split of the last 5 years. He chose not to, and then they got to go, well, how are they doing it? We already know he's fucking good. He's the one who won't sign on the fucking dotted line. Like, he could have done that the whole time. For whatever reason, he chose not to and do this weird vanity project with Cadril. The problem is, next year, are you going to have those players? Because if you don't, even Los Ratones wouldn't be as hype. Everyone should know it, surely. Especially, the last thing to say is this. They all technically boosted that project, because who the fuck would play for no salary? You let me know. Tell you what, you guys go and do it. Get a really popular streamer and tell him, get a load of pro players who should be in LEC, and tell them play for nothing and just make my stream massive, and then we'll see if we can get in. Like, that's no, every other owner's looking around going, well, I can have the chance and be a fine thing, mate. They won't, they come to our team if I don't pay them. As we just said, the joke is even fuckers like SK probably can actually have players if they want it, but then the players like, nah, I'll just chill in the LFL, hope I get the offer from fucking Coin next season or something, or fucking Fnatic or something. Why would I go to your team and blow my first chance? So I do also think specifically Los Ratones was such like a black swan event, like super outlier. You can never, I don't think even they could replicate it. So I actually think it's smart to shut the project down. I think actually if you ship of Theseus, downgrade those pieces to less famous or less established, or just not like people with top skills, I think that project would get really bought. Imagine if they had the skill level of KCB and they were in the next year. Lastly, this is why the one thing I'll give to Riot is at least they put some bullshit plausible deniability that the whole plan was just to get Los Ratones in by going, no, there'll be 2 teams. And oh, look, one is KCB. By the way, conveniently even takes away part of Kometo's complaints because he gets the second team in there. Oh, that's weird how that worked out for you politically. But I'll go ahead and make you a prediction. They'll never run this tournament again, Emtest. There'll never be 2 versus teams. There definitely won't be any fucking, you can have any random players on KCB. Hey, welcome to, they'll never happen again. As long as Los Ratones is really gone, this whole project is over. Even though I agree with you, it was really exciting. It was a fun thing you could do. You can have a third-party tournament. We're not going to see it again, mate. It's over. Like, they're cancelling the whole thing. Oh, if you're KCB, I hope you enjoyed the split because that's all you're fucking getting. Back you go. You're never coming back. And I don't care if a team goes and wins every EMEA this year. You ain't getting in next year. I'm sorry. I think this whole thing's now neatly been put away, unless, as I say, the 1% chance Riot's doing some shenanigans behind the scenes and they're going to make like Los Ratones a real team or a partner team or a guest slot. It's Riot as a last thing to throw out there. There's actually an idea that a fan said on this last episode of Summoning Insight, like a fan at the end submitted, which I've never heard anyone suggest. And this is actually quite a clever idea. Their idea was, since LCS has a very different franchising scenario where nobody wants to buy in, nobody wants to buy slots for 30 million, and they themselves gave money back and had a guest slot, he said, why don't you just bring Los Ratones as a guest into the LCS? That's a fucking banger idea. Although obviously they'd have to live in America, blah, blah, blah. But that's actually a great idea, by the way. That could have been the solution to this problem. Would have even boosted LCS viewership, but whatever. I agree though. By the way, it was awesome. It was a fucking probably the most hype winter split ever. Yeah.
I mean, as a coach, sorry, you first.
No, I just wanted to say that I do agree with you that this probably won't happen again. And even if it did, it would not be nearly as hype as it was now, right? Just mainly due to LR. I just like the different, like, experimenting with different types of formats you can do in Winter. Because again, just if you're just going on with like, oh, this is your split one and you're doing nothing new and you're just doing it normally, then to me it's just fucking useless, right?
Yeah.
I will say just quickly, I like what, I mean, obviously I'm like a huge LCK fan. I'm like a really big fanboy of that. I think the kickoff tournament that they have, like the LCK Cup, I think that's actually like not a bad format. I don't know if it would work in the same way in LEC because to me, when I'm watching LCK, I feel like there's a lot of teams that are interesting, like at least like 8 teams that I think are really like fun to watch. And I don't feel the same for LEC. So maybe that would not like hit the mark, right? But just overall, like experimenting, and maybe you're gonna miss sometimes, maybe sometimes you're gonna hit like this one, right? I think it's a good mindset to have. Sorry, Peter, I just wanted to add in quickly.
No, I mean, I think you've made a really good point. I mean, like even the LCK Cup, they do wild things. Like this year, it was Cloud9 and TL they invited, and they have like a Vietnamese all-star team, and they have a Japanese team. You know, this is a good. You could do this, I guess. I don't know how you would do it, but it was pretty good. But yeah, so just my selfish thing for LR, like to me, there were different things people enjoy. Obviously, there's some Reckless fans, some Nemesis fans, you know. But the thing which made LR interesting to me personally was Baus. Like, I mean, you know, I wanted to see whether Baus could succeed, and honestly, I wouldn't be that hyped because you know if let's say they put Odawamne in, right, who's the coach. I think he's already part of like I don't know exactly what he was doing on that team, but if you had the same, you ran it back with Odawamne, I don't think I would be that. I would personally be that interested. It's just like 4 ex-pros. But to have a guy who like blatantly doesn't give a shit, and who you know, and who's just vibing it, well, I think is what made it interesting to me. But I think you know the thing about the lightning in the bottle was that there were different things that appealed to different people. So I think finding the way to do it in a competitive way. Now the reason LCK. Sorry, your point about LCK Cup was so good that I've just got to add a bit. Like the reason LCK the Cup they can do it is they do it over Christmas, and there's no way you could do an LEC tournament over Christmas. But man, yeah, doing something like inviting Cloud9 or TL or something like this. If you don't want to, that would be really fucking hype. But yeah, you'd have to change for. I've got no idea. I think about it. But so you raise a very good point.
Thank you. I will say that like at least in Sweden, like there is definitely like not much interest for LEC like overall, and I think that's what like hit great with just this. I get it, like it's 5 streamers or like 4 ex-pro players that are all like very well known. It's very, very hard to replicate, right? But it was just fun to like talk to my normie friends, and they're actually like watching LEC. Like that's to me has like never happened before, right? So that was just really like heartwarming for me to be able to like express. To be fair, it was really nice. So I will also never forget it, Thorin. Like I know it's like the perfect thing to say,
of course,
when like everything is you're kind of LR is like kind of ending on like a high note, right? They're not like this. Pro football player that plays until they're like 45 and they just kind of break their legs and then they end on like a really bad note, right? They for sure like took the right decision to end on like this type of like peak. Right?
I'll even give you an edgy take, bro. Yeah. No one's going to like this take. That's why it's what only Thorin can give you. It was actually better for all of you that they never touched the playoffs. Because you know what? You can now all dream, what if we had have won that one game against Vitality where we went in? What if we'd have beaten Fnatic? What if in the playoffs we could actually have gotten it together and we could have... Instead, what if you actually had gone to the playoffs and they just lose 2-0 each time? And it's just shit and they draft properly again. That would actually suck if that was the end. This way you get teased with, you know, you always have the, but maybe though, maybe an enemy Nemesis could have carried us again. In a way that's better for your imagination, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, Peter, what is your good point?
Yeah, so my good point is actually it's a bad point in putting a good point, but my good point is Heretics. And you know, I put up the league table, but basically there's some people on Twitter who put up the league table. And if you look at the LEC Versus win rate, you look at results of teams playing against other teams that made playoffs. Heretics are top of the league. Heretics went 5-2 against the other 7 teams that made playoffs. Then you have MCoy and KC who were 4-3 and all the other teams were 3-4. Right? Literally, that shows how balanced the league was. Every other team was 3-4. But Heretics were 5-2 against the top teams. The reason why their record looks bad is because they went 1-3 against the 3 teams that didn't make playoffs. They lost the Los Ratones, they lost the Shifters, they lost the SK, right? They beat KCB, right? But so this is a team that, because of how it ended, the amount of disrespect that I see, KC just threw the game. You know, like they don't give a shit, right? Maybe we'll talk about the format a little bit later, but you know, this is so disrespectful to Heretics. And I think this, you know, we talked a bit about Navi, and you know, on paper, to me, the Navi coaching staff looks better than the Heretics coaching staff, but I don't think the Heretics coaching staff is bad either, right? Like those 2 teams are the 2 teams that I think actually, and MCoy as well, have done a lot of thinking about their coaching staff. And you know, this is a very impressive achievement. Like to go 5-2 against teams that make playoffs, to come back from that run, you know, even Seren, who's the one guy that I had doubts on, he's playing really, really well. And I think this team is a team that may surprise people in playoffs. I think, if you ask me, I think they're going to be a team that is up there at the end of the year. I'm surprised that they got this good this fast. But let's see how the rookies handle the best of threes, best of fives. Let's see how they go and handle the situation in playoffs and under the additional pressure, under the additional scrutiny. But these guys are no slouches, right? And it's not impossible to believe that they can beat KC, especially before the KC game. They were 4-2 against all the other teams in playoffs, and now they go to 5-2, and you go and dismiss that win as match fixing. Like, holy shit, man, that's so fucking disrespectful, man. Like, So my good point is Heretics playing well. Obviously, I think Tracing is a mega chat. I like Shearer and Sten. People who watched the show last year probably fed up of me talking about Shearer and Sten. And Tracing has fitted into the team. But the two people that have surprised me is Ice managed to fit in well, but also Serin on a team that has very little primary shot calling has managed to fill that role so far. So let's see how they do. But I mean, this is a team which by the end of this year is going to be very, very dangerous. But let's see. But the playoffs, tracking how they do in playoffs is going to be a real banger. But yeah, they deserve more respect than like this. This and Navi are the interesting stories. Like so we've everyone's focusing on like Los Ratones and like Fnatic and things like this. But you want feel good stories? Navi and Heretics, man. Like a really, really impressive performance in the best of one. So.
What do you think, Emtest?
I mean, I'll be the first to say that I'm really impressed with. I'm really impressed with Sten. Like I had very low opinion of this guy like previously, and I was kind of actually surprised that he was staying in Heretics like from last year. But I'm also happy to see where they have been going. I do agree with you that Ice has been like fitting perfectly. That's like one. I obviously don't know the guy, so I have no idea how he like managed to handle his own back when he actually came to Berlin and LEC like for the first year, right? But very happy to see as well. I mean, I did think that Serin like would do at least okay. I will be honest in that I haven't watched Tracing like that much like previously. So again, like to me, when I look at this roster, if I were to make like a prediction beforehand, I would predict them probably not to make playoffs. I would predict them below SK, I think. But so that's why again, I completely agree with you there, Peter, that stories like these are like really interesting to watch because you look at the roster, I see like no star player. I don't really know like who is like the captain, right? But they seem to be functioning really well. And maybe that's also partly due to Staff, who is like I think Ark is like their assistant coach. I don't think this is like for sure his first LEC split. Obviously, Hedon is like a well-known like personality. I guess he's been like in the environment for like a long time, but I actually don't know if he's been able to like lead a team and like being the head coach in the past. Maybe he has, but just overall, very happy to see that his techniques are like working. So again, I agree with you, Peter. I'm really hyped to watch Heretics.
Yeah, by the way, I actually do think, if you remember, Peter, that was my actual ugly point on episode 1 of this show before the season. It's like, how did everyone sleep on this roster being made? Like, I think bearing in mind, you always have to remember, someone like Heretics, with the exception of the time Perks and G2 and all those players came that were massive names, they've never ever been top of the list where top prospects want to go, and they're definitely not spending the most money. Like, again, I don't know if they have ever published one of those things again on cheap esports, but like, they would be like one of those teams that's quite a cheap team, I would imagine. So you look at who they picked up. This is quite shrewd. Like they've picked up people where they were just ahead of everyone on Tracing. They just got him way before. They managed to get Ice, which I thought was like a very shrewd signing. Like what a great upgrade of that position. You held on to Stend and Shio, who were the heart of your team, and then he took a gamble on the mid laner. And basically, even though in the first week it looked like, well, now I know I picked them all up. It looked bad in the first week, but actually, if you even go watch those games, this is another team that was on the shift as like we're just throwing games. Like I remember there was like one game early on that Serin unsurprisingly had like a bad one. But if people don't know, you go later in the split to like that MCOY game, he fucking won him the whole game with that shockwave. It was baller. That was some like legit shit against what was supposed to at the time be one of the top teams. But I'll confirm what Peter says. You go and check a single Reddit thread of any of the games they won against the top teams, they're barely mentioned. It's all just about BO1 socks. Wow, I guess the whole LEC shit now. How's anyone losing to these guys? It's like, you can tell people didn't watch the games, mate. These were the games they looked on the schedule and went, right, MCOY's going to win that. Vitality's going to win that. What? They lost? And then they didn't bother looking. They looked at the scoreboard and they were, who the fuck's Serin or whatever, and then just decided they were all trash, even though, by the way, even though he's certainly been very up and down, he actually showed some potential. The Tracing guy, actually, by the way, if this guy had just been on a top, if he was Fnatic's fucking top laner, everyone would be saying he's all LEC. He's had a fucking mega breakout. Like, what a great performance generally. And then also, I'll even give you this, even the game they lost against Los Ratones, that was the Nemesis giga hard carry performance. Like, they probably would have won that game if they hadn't, again, on Los Ratones, had a player who has no business being on a team that low down. He should already be on a better team. So I think actually generally they did well. If you consider how many games they won, bro, in the end, they were 2 games from the top of the standings, and they easily threw 2 games this split. Like, this team, unironically, could have had an even bigger success story. But with that said, no need to be greedy. I'll just take them at fucking like tied for 4th place. That's pretty fucking good for this roster. So no, I'm with you. Especially bear in mind the opening rounds are BO3, Peter. If this team fucks around, I could see them make a little mini run and finish like 4th or something. That's actually plausible, which again, I don't think anyone, aside from people who are lunatics, thought was really possible for the season. So, and also similarly, great job by the coaching staff. It has to be. You can't trip over and put a random group of players together and have them all succeed. There's got to be something you were doing there.
I mean, I think it shows the strength of the ERLs still. I mean, you know, with funding cuts, let's see how it goes for the long run. But there was strength in the ERLs this offseason, and the teams that chose to have faith in it were rewarded. But what I would say, they're in the playoffs against G2. They're going to get absolutely blasted by G2, but hopefully they make a good run through the lower bracket. Like if they stomp G2 in the first round of playoffs, that will be like very, very impressive. But I still, even after watching G2 all of this split, like run it down, I can't see them beating G2. But I do think that they'll be very dangerous in the lower bracket. Is what I would say.
Is that just like the history of G2 that they're kind of like just, you know, overall like scaling? Because obviously they haven't like been looking like as good, right? I guess they like kind of turned it up like in the last week, right? But is that just your estimate from like how things have been in the past for G2 as well? I mean, I feel like they always like had a bit of a rough start. Like after going to Worlds, they obviously have like a very long season, right? So is that why you think that they're just gonna get shit stomped, Peter?
Yeah, I mean, it's PTSD, you know, like I've played against Cap so many times and lost the Cap. I just can't believe it. I just can't. And especially, you know, like I was beginning to have, you know, because sometimes you want G2 to have a downfall. I was like, oh, maybe there's a chance. Maybe they can lose to Fnatic. You know, okay, I don't believe it's going to happen, but maybe they can lose. Maybe they'll miss playoffs. And then I just see them stomp Fnatic into the floor in like the most important game of the season. And I'm like, oh, maybe they were messing around a bit. You know, like I think definitely this season, the 2 teams, I think MKOI, like I really think MKOI were like limit testing and not taking it that seriously. And G2, I've seen the story so many times that it's just PTSD at this point. Like I cannot believe that they will not turn it around in playoffs. But sure, if you go on what you saw in the last week, there should be a 2-0 Heretics win. But like if Heretics win 2-0, I mean I'll be happy. But I just can't let myself believe yet, is what I would say.
Makes sense.
By the way, speaking of actually also how people just took the league table and acted like the first few... Here's what's so weird. I'll never understand this. People will take the first 2 weeks of LEC, because it's going to be my good point here, and they will act like that's like a form guide that was lasting years, and we've now established who the top teams are and who the bottom teams are, and then they'll treat the last 2 weeks as though they should match the first 2. It's like, that's the opposite of how a season works. Like, the best team, by the way, is the one at the end of the season who's the best, not the one who starts the season great, and the shittest team isn't the one that starts the season shit, it's the one that ends the season shit. Like, it's why last year I made the point that you could actually look at G2 and KC and go, well, on the one hand, KC won a split, they were a top team, but actually their coaching staff, I'm sorry, you failed. You started the split the year awesome, and at the end you were nothing. G2 had all those weird bumps along the early, and then at the end they were the best. Like, that's even though the results might look similar, the one has a very different trajectory to the other one. So the team I'm going to pick for my good is Vitality, but actually they're another victim of exactly this thinking. If you go and look in the first 2 weeks, they were 3-3, and the problem is they lost to people like, they lost to fucking Fnatic, who looked like frauds. They lost, one of their wins was KCB anyway. They lost, who else was it they lost to? Heretics, who no one respected because they thought they were. So when you look at the first 2 weeks, people just decided that Vitality themselves are in that Heretics group, they're in the Fnatic group, they're in the bad teams, right? Essentially, we were supposed to believe after the first 2 weeks, there's only 3 good teams in the league. They are MCoy, KC, and then eventually G2 because everyone believes G2 gets it together. Those are the only wins that count. And so people ignored that, like, on the last 2 weeks. It's why, by the way, I could not believe how many Los Ratones fans were going, no problem for us. We're going to go 2-0 and beat SK. And I'm like, I'm with you. And then Vitality 2 was like, whoa, where did that come from? Like, why are you beating Vitality? Because even though you could have, if you look at the last 2 weeks, Vitality went 4-1. And who did they beat? All the fucking best teams in the actual league. They beat the GX that was super hot to start the season. They beat MCoy, who in theory is supposed to be one of the best teams. They beat KC, literally the best team in the whole of the LEC. Like, this is legit as fuck. And you look at their roster, as well as actually at the end, I think they got underrated. And that's why at the end they sort of just crept up the rankings for people. You also look at the players they have. Yes, they have problems, but there's a reason why on paper they made this roster. You look at the 3 carry positions. Those are fucking good players, mate. None of those players are bad. In fact, you can actually argue, like, their top laner could even be, like, if it wasn't for the carry, he would just be the best LEC top laner, mate. Then you look at their mid, I said it earlier, people might not like Humanoid if you're only looking at, does he beat Caps and win the championship? Every other metric, he's still really good though, isn't he? He's always going to be a top half mid laner, as long as he just cares to turn up and click the mouse. Like, that's just who he is. And then Kazi is certainly not at his best from years gone by, but he's still got something, hasn't he? He still has quality to his play. So I actually think Vitality ended up getting slept on because people again just decided them winning is a sign that, like, the team they beat is bad or the LEC sucks. Like, and also I've watched and the LEC with this Vitality, like, ship of Theseus, one player comes in until they comes out. The last 3 years have been a waste of time. They never even ever really delivered on the potential. It was more the potential was always on paper and then never would win in the game. This is easily the most exciting Vitality squad in about 3 fucking years. Like, it's ridiculous how much better it is. Again, I would just struggle to look at this team and go, why should it even be bad? I think it's actually just a pretty well put together team that by the end did exactly what you want a team to do, get better as the split goes on. And at the end, they were also beating the best teams. It wasn't even like they had the easy schedule. If you want to do the thing Peter said earlier, they also get full marks around the end of the split. Thoughts on Vitality Emtest?
I mean, I think it's just a result of good scouting, good prep, and good stuff. I think that's one, like, I guess, shout out I could, like, make. That's like the coding stuff I guess I, like, know the most. I really like what Vitality, like, has. First of all, I really like Pad. I really like Mac as well. I think their philosophy is, like, great. Then again, for sure, like, you're taking a gamble with, like, bringing in someone like Nako, like, in the team, right? And maybe for his, like, first split, he didn't do, like, super well. But now it seems like to really have, like, found his strength and is able to, like, be creative in the ways that he, like, actually wants to play the game, right? And then another thing, like you mentioned before, how Peter, you said before, like, how you never saw Rooster, like, smiling on camera, right? Like, if you look at Vitality's cameras in game, bro, they're, like, having a fucking amazing time together, and that's, like, to me, that's so fun to watch as well. Like, I can just see that they're all, like, genuinely, like, happy to be there together, and that, I think, and now they're obviously doing well. I think that plays a big part of it. But if you're doing bad as well, it's just, that's kind of what gets you out of, like, that rut, and you don't dwell on that, right? I think that's what I would say about Carsey, is that, like, no matter if he's, like, as good mechanically as he was, like, before, like, we could argue about that, right? But I know for sure this guy's, like, bringing, like, massive ton of, like, nice vibes into the team. I think that actually goes a long way. So
you can even argue that's probably the reason Humanoid's even here, mate. You actually wanted to play with something that was, like, fun again, and it wasn't just all pressure and we're just failing. Yeah, I got the vibe.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, I don't know whether Kazi's trolling, because he trolls in, like, so many interviews, but he basically said he took a pay cut to get Humanoid there, which I could believe, but, you know, that's just Kazi in a post-game interview. Like, I've got no idea whether he's trolling or not. But look, I'm always scared with Vitality, because whenever I think it's a new dawn, it always goes to shit. But I would say that, you know, Vitality in the last 2 weeks, they went 4-1, but that game against G2 was pretty close. I mean, it was basically like Fleshy's inexperience.
Yep.
And like G2 camp mid, I think it was like Yone into a Z or something like this, where Humanoid needs to play mega aggressive, and Fleshy kind of didn't understand his assignment properly, right? Like, he didn't play it correctly, and I'm sure they went back and watched those VODs, right? But that was a game that, you know, they fought back on in the mid game. And what I would say, you know, for Humanoid, firstly, never missed worlds in his career. You know, no matter how bad the team he's been on, he's never missed worlds until last year when Fnatic dropped him for Poppy, and he wasn't even playing, right? So are you going to go and count that against him? So we'll see if he holds that this year. This is definitely one of the he has on paper less secure pieces than maybe he's had on teams in the past. But obviously, I'm a great humanoid fan. I want him to do the best, and I think that a lot of the things which piss off fans are basically him just playing to the crowd. He's like one of those guys that cares about League but can't ever show that he cares about League. He's like, what's the animator like? He's Tsundere or something like this. I think is the he's like, oh no, I can't really like it, but no, he obviously wants to succeed, and this is what I would say about Humanoid, and obviously, yeah, they seem to be having a lot of vibes. The guy that I'm looking at always with Vitality, Fleshy, do your job, right? Knack, obviously, I think he may even have been better than Canada Split. It's pretty close, but he's one of the top 2 top laners. Obviously, Kazi and Humanoid. I have faith that those two together will, they play well off each other. Like Kazi maybe has a bit too much positive energy, Humanoid has a bit too much negative energy. You put them together, you get a good mix, right? But the one person obviously in all of this is Linkus, right? And Vitality's success at the end of the year will depend on this guy, Mr. Potential, actually reaching his potential for the first time in his career. And let's see if he does it. I really want Linkus to succeed, just out of personal spite to 2 years saying, I was right. All of those years I told you Linkus had potential. He never met it, but I was right in the end. But yeah, no, Linkus has to succeed for this roster to be successful. But in playoffs, the 2 scariest teams in playoffs to me are KC and Vitality. Right? Like, respect to Na'Vi, show me what you can do in playoffs with your rookies. Respect to Heretics, show me what you can do in your playoffs with your rookies. But the two teams that I think should start as the favorites are KC and Vitality, because the people on those teams have the winning experience and they have the form. G2 have the winning experience, they don't have the form. Heretics and Na'Vi have the form, they don't have the winning experience, right? So don't count this as this is not betting advice. This is not financial advice. But if you wanted to have you were looking for like a dark horse. You're looking for like a long shot for playoffs. Vitality. You could probably get pretty high odds on Vitality winning, is what I'd say. But that's because I think they're being slept on a bit, right? So let's see how they do after playoffs. But this is definitely a team that I want to do well. But yeah, whenever I praise them, they do rubbish. I never praise them. I'm not going to praise them anymore on the show, but I'm glad Thorin has praised them for me, so I don't have to do praise which looks stupid in the end.
I think that's completely fair, honestly. I think a lot of people would probably just like, no matter what, they would just put G2 as the favorites because it's fucking G2, right? But I think that actually now looking at it more, I think G2 has been like, as you mentioned, like they've been kind of following this formula. Like we talked about how winter split is like kind of useless, right? I feel like they're vibing for sure with that, because the last like winter splits they have, it just feels like they're not it, right? And then they always scale towards like worlds and like towards summer, right? Which I think is just another. I think honestly that's like the other coaching stuff I know the most. I think they're fucking great, and I think they have for sure this intentional approach to how the early season is like supposed to go and the pace that they're like doing things. So I like that you're not just putting G2 as like the favorite instantly, right? And I think you're definitely right, and I'm excited to watch them as well.
Also, even though people want to pretend League is just like you're on some chess master drafts and no, one thing even coaching staff, if they're smart, do is use narratives. So I'll give you the example. In the same way as if you're G2, you'd be a dumb coach if you didn't play into the idea, guys, it's okay, we always peak in the playoffs. It's just about showing progress. It doesn't even matter if we win the game, we just got to like level up our warding and balance fight. And then what you do, by the way, if you're in T1, you think they do it before Worlds go. Everyone thinks we'll lose. This is the same every year, boys. But, we're different. We're built different in that boot camp. And, we're going to figure out the meta. Even if it's not true, you fucking say it anyway, because what an insane psychological edge to have over every other team. That's actually an underrated detail in itself, like I said before about the KC versus G2 thing. Most teams, if you start badly, it gets even worse and everything collapses in on itself. Everyone's confidence destroyed. You're never going to fucking come back and win later. There's actually, to have that resilience built in that you can overcome, and you can even have like the cushion of like, it's okay to lose a few weeks. It's kind of crazy. That's OP in itself. I bet a lot of other orgs wish they had that. So, okay, let us now go to the ugly section. And what is ugly, Emtest?
I mean, you said that like the first topic we had like is like the most controversial. Maybe I think to me at least this is the most controversial, at least for me. I don't love this, but I think at least that I think that betting sponsors are like basically inevitable in esports. I think one, teams are like struggling financially. Second, viewership alone is like for sure not enough. And thirdly, I think we're like following the formula of a lot of like traditional sports. And let's be honest, like they went down this road like many years ago already. There are obviously like real risks around integrity, and especially like in esports, there's a lot of younger audiences, right? That would have to be regulated. But also pretending that esports like lives in a bubble and we're supposed to be like all the good guys, I think it's like it's not gonna fix the money problem either, right? So that's pretty much my take. I think betting sponsors are just like inevitable in esports, and I think they will be allowed at some point in the future, probably soon. So yeah, that's my ugly take.
Ooh, so for me, betting sponsors, you know, what I've always said on this topic is teams need money to survive, right? They are businesses. There is an argument that you can make that teams should have that teams need to that you hold up teams. We don't look at them as businesses. We look at them as like, what's the word I'm looking for? Things that we put our beliefs into, right?
Yeah.
And that I think, if you want your team to behave in a certain way, you should behave in a way that incentivizes them to behave in that certain way. But that's not what fans normally do, right? They don't want to pay for content. They don't want to like buy merch. How are these teams going to remain solvent, right? Like, and for me, the thing about betting sponsors is, firstly, you need good. A lot of money will come in, and you need good protections against that, right? Like you can't things like you cannot, if you have a ton of betting sponsors in your league, you cannot have team owners joking about match fixing and things like this, right? Because then that's going to be very, very, very problematic, right? So you have to go really harsh. Like, I don't know what Kometo was saying on his stream. I think like lots of Vitonis fans were like, oh, he's just laughing at this and it's obviously match fixed and something like this. If he was saying that in French and you're bringing in betting sponsors, you should like go down with a ton of bricks. I find it unlikely that that's what Kometo was saying, but I didn't watch his whole stream and I'm not fluent in French, right? Like, but if that is what was going on, he should be punished really harshly. If it's just fans being delusional, then fine. But the point I'm trying to make here is not about Kometo. It's that if people do make those kind of things, you need to go really harsh and you need to put safeguards in place. There are things you can do. There are like, how do I say this? There are models. I've got to be careful because I have a friend in real life who knows a lot about this stuff. So I have to work out what. Okay, so there are models you can use to see if there's odd things in betting, right? Like if you see hundreds of thousands being put on a Bulgarian Division 2 football game, you know that there's something dodgy about that game, and you have to put similar. You're going to have a lot of money coming in, so you can't just take all that money out. You have to put some of that money into safeguards to prevent that kind of thing from happening, to avoid the appearance of impropriety, right? I think that's really, really important. But people are willing to support football teams who have betting sponsors, right? But when it comes to esports, there's a lot of brouhaha about it, right? And to me, that's kind of like a double standard, right? So if you don't like betting sponsors as a fan, what have you done to incentivize your team to not have those betting sponsors? Okay. Secondly, as a fan, if you expect your team to remain solvent, what makes betting sponsors different from venture capitalist money, right? In the long run, okay, you can argue about the harm to society, but then simple question to ask is, you're willing to support a football team, right? Like I know fans who are like, oh, G2 shouldn't have a betting sponsor. Oh, but it's okay if Chelsea Football Club have I can't remember which Premier League football teams have betting sponsors, but a lot of them do, right? And I think it's a delicate topic. I think you've got to put lots of safeguards into place. But again, as a fan, if you don't want this to happen, act in a way that will incentivize teams to behave in the way that you want them to act, right? And that's kind of my thoughts on the topic. I'm kind of ambivalent on it because I know My main knowledge about what betting sponsors do to the finances of the league is based purely on Brazil. I've got no idea how it works in the UK, sorry, in Europe or anything like this, but I know that in Brazil it made the league solvent and very, very profitable in a way that when it was removed, it hurt the finances of the league very, very harshly. But again, if you want them, put the cards in place. Don't just keep all the money.
Yes.
You have to put special things in.
I mean, this was obviously like also very like frowned upon. Like this is, I guess, the one topic I made like the most research on. It was like a lot. This like came into play in football in like early 2000s, right? And before that, there was like a lot of conversation about it, but it was really like frowned upon. Then they started to like implementing it a bit, and then suddenly like every single team like kind of had like big sponsorship like labeled on their jerseys, right? That was like obviously like more than 20 years ago. And actually, like in this season now, 2026, 27, they actually like prohibited the teams from having like a big like sponsorship right on their jersey, right? You can still like have it on the side of the jersey or like something smaller, right? But like they're kind of regulating it in a way where it's still like accepted, I guess, but it's like more, it's not the same like norm anymore. And maybe I'm just bad of thinking of like other ideas where we could actually like draw in capital that are not like completely like mega risky. But I kind of vibe with the things that you said as well. Like people are like, either we do this, in my opinion, or you do what every other like traditional sport is doing, which is basically just like pay-per-view. Like you are actually paying to watch the content that you're actually consuming, right? I think that's another road that you could definitely like take.
Yes.
I don't know how well it would actually do, but I think it is somewhat either this or something like that. Like for sure, it has to be like the future of some sort in esports, because if you're watching all of the content online for free and you're not supporting like any of the teams, like I don't see how the industry is like surviving long term. That's just my point, I guess.
And the final thing, so just my final thing before I hand to Thorin. The obviously you've missed one other way of financing, which is you allow any type of capital to come in, even from places you may not agree with, like their opinions, and that's a political topic, and I'm not going anywhere further on that topic. But that is an option you have as well, right? So you have to pick one of those options, right?
And by the way, spoiler, just like at all the sports you're talking about, they'll just cynically do all of these things at some point in time, Emtest. So you're right. Right now, you could just get the money from like pay-per-view. But if you know how pay-per-view sports go, they still have ads everywhere. They still have all the betting sponsor. Eventually, in the same way as a person, when they make their wages, will always just spend enough that their living expenses come right close to what they're making the wages. So will teams, because then when the money comes in from pay-per-view, then the teams will be like, I'll pay even more money for my player. And then suddenly everyone needs more money as well. And then the betting sponsor. So I think it'll eventually be all of it, mate. And as Peter just said, we've already crossed over the Rubicon, guys. Like, if you guys don't want betting, spoiler, you had to have a massive stance against the Saudis a few years ago on EWC and all that. Like, as soon as we let them in the door, how can we then turn to the betting guys and go, now what you're doing is really fucked up socially? Like, what? They're not cutting people's heads off, are they? So, that, to me, you've already crossed that Rubicon. As Peter even alluded to there, even though they turned down Falcons a couple of years ago, just wait for that one. That'll be in a year or two. Again, if there's fuck all people buying slots. In fact, and there's even the angle that I should have put out there myself, but I didn't even think of this one. Shout out to Peter for setting me up for this one. Cadrel, mate, you already took that Saudi EWC back. Just get them involved, get a few millions. Suddenly Falcons have the most loved team in Europe and they get to compete in LEC. It's a win for everyone, isn't it? Debatable. Also, I'll give Emtest credit, actually. He only put this into the ugly section. And you have to understand, he's Swedish. In Sweden, they're in a totally different cultural world to us. One, they still don't even let you buy anything over fucking a light beer. You have to go to the government monopoly store. You can't even... In the UK, by the way, since I was a boy, it's actually the famous way, sadly, that people get access to alcohol. You just stand outside the newsagent, basically, and then go, "Will you go in and buy me some..." And then people go in and buy you, like, the bottle of vodka or whatever. In Sweden, you have to literally, even as an adult, go to a government store. They even purposely close, by the way, mad early in the day, so you can't just be some wine or 11 p.m. or whatever. And then shout out System Bolaget one time. You have to go into the store with your ID, and even if you're an adult, and buy it. So already, Swedes are on that. And I know in their country, for gambling, they didn't even make it, again, outside of government control until a few years back. I think it was only like 5 years ago, something mad, that was even the thing. So actually, it's not an idea, unlike in countries like the UK and certain other European, that this is just ubiquitous and it's everywhere. I've always said, when I was a boy, enjoy. The joke is, even in a small town, the most number of shops are betting shops, mate. Because you obviously have one, shop for clothes and one for... You have like 5 on the high street that are betting shops, because it's just all the different types of betting shop that you'd want to have. You have the one for the old boomer guy, and the one that the younger guy goes into, and the one that has some fun aspect to it, or maybe has slot machines in it as well, or some shit like that. So it's more just part of the culture in that sense. But I will say, though, the obvious angle for this one is it is inevitable because the money injection has to happen. Like, remember, we've lost the VC one. That was where most people were taking their money. I know that's mad because that's not what VC's actually for. It wasn't to let you buy super sick players, because that's not going to make your company like 10x. But the investor thought that's what the money was going for. He thought this was building the league and that we'd be UFC in like 2 years or something mad like that. Even though that turns out that was not really wrong. But guess what? They figured that out too, guys. All that money is now literally in AI. That's where they're all putting all AI and crypto shit. Then also there's the fact that I agree. The reason it should be ugly is this can lead to some of the worst things in esports, like match fixing, like people just scam. I'll give you some angles on different degrees of harshness. So one of them would be the example in the KC example, which as far as I know, he didn't do anything. He just did bad acting. That, I'm so, what's going on? But like, he didn't even pull it off. He's not a good actor. He's just a fucking streamer, isn't he? So that just made it look like he's pissing in your face while they're losing the game. But as we've said earlier on the Heretics point, Heretics isn't even bad, mate. That wasn't even like they just took their hands off the keyboard and let themselves lose. They just got lost to a team that actually was like an underrated team in the league. But the real problem you have is, in that case, people think it's because he wanted to teach Rossatonas a lesson and they shouldn't be in the playoffs. There's a way worse example that you could have of that, which is, let's imagine this is a hypothetical version. I'm in Kameto's point, and fuck Los Ratones. Imagine that game is the team that's actually going to get knocked out of playoffs if I lose that game is G2. There's where it gets dangerous, because you could even argue, if I've already topped the league, I'm even somewhat, aside from the moral angle, incentivized to knock a G2 out, so they can't peak in the playoffs, so they can't get it together through those early rounds and then meet me in the final and beat me. The difference is, in that analogy, the joke is, I'd rather have a Los Ratones over G2 if I could, because I know I can beat them. But, well, you never want to let a top team who's already done more success earlier in the split sort of decide that. Similarly, it doesn't happen in this format because you've got double elim, but I can tell you in Counter-Strike, where we used to have loads of single elimination playoffs, or there has also been similar scenarios where a team had won enough games that they didn't have to win their last game in a group, but by losing the last game, they get like the easy side of the bracket. There's another classic problem you're going to have in that situation. And by the way, all of this tied to the idea that if any owner or coach or player ever goes to his mate, put money on that game, then you've got essentially like a rigged bet at that point in time. And then lastly, what Peter's saying, there are safeguards with this. And actually, in a weird way, this is why the more legit the gambling company you get involved, not just any old gambling company, one that has like a pedigree, will actually help you with exactly what Peter's talking about. Those companies are experts at identifying what are probably dodgy bettors. As Peter says, there's 2 obvious ways you do it. One, you have a match that is like Bulgarian 18th best Counter-Strike team plays France's 17th best. No one's watching that. No one cares. But magically, the volume of bets on the game is like $100,000. Like, someone knows something that the rest of us don't, and that's more than enough for like a real group stage game in like a tier 1 tournament. And then the other classic one is, it's a match that no one's betting on, and the odds are crazy, like 10-1, and 1 minute before the game goes live, the 20k goes in on the 10-1 side, and then the 10-1 team wins. That can happen as a miracle, but if that keeps happening, it's obviously a pattern of behaviour, isn't it? Again, someone bizarrely is taking the worst odds chances on a game, no one knows it, and then winning all the time. That's how but the problem is, I can tell you, in games like Counter-Strike, it was actually the betting companies that used to ban people like that, by the way. If they figured out you were doing that, they would get you soft blacklisted. They would even tell the tournaments, just don't let them in. Just fucking find an excuse that they can't play in the tournament, or tell them they're literally blacklisted. You've done suspicious behaviour. And then lastly, they even themselves would just not list those games. They would, say you get let in the tournament, right? Well, we're not offering a bet for that game because in the past it's been shown probably these players in this case are doing some of the match fixing, so we're not going to allow you to defraud our customers and make it not seem legit. Remember, since in theory, in the long run, most people lose at betting, the betting company actually is incentivized to make it as legit as possible, because you're going to lose anyway, which lastly is why betting companies will always be the ones knocking on the door when no one else is. It's about as close in a business as a license to print money as you can get, because most people are losing to you over and over again, and you're getting your percent anyway. So it just is an example of someone where even when the rest of the industry doesn't want to be involved in esports, they're going to want to be, because they're all about exposure and just bringing more people into their funnel. So I agree, it's just inevitable, unfortunately, especially because, as you pointed out, the other ways you can fix this involve people spending their own money or having to be actively engaged, or we have to like level up sponsorships or stuff that's really hard to do, unfortunately. The difference is these people are basically already waiting, like, can I get in? And if you say yes, they're in tomorrow, and they'll start spending money, and suddenly there's more money in the ecosystem. No, I'm with you. Also, go on.
No, I just want to say, like, I don't love the fact that I think like this. Like, I just agree with you. I think it's just inevitable because the other ways of getting into it is like a lot of people, like individuals, like spending money on jerseys or paying for pay-per-view.
Yeah,
or,
classic
like,
stuff.
And I'll just be honest, like, that's not gonna happen in the way
at the moment. It's not, like, certainly not.
Not right now, right? And it's just been, I guess, last like 4 years, just been rough for this industry as a whole, right? And we just need ways to solve it, pretty much. And it's definitely has to be a lot of regulations because the problems you guys are describing are definitely very, very real, right? So it can't just be, okay, now we have bets for everything, guys, just go fucking ham, right? Like, there definitely has to be a lot of, like, strict rules, like, against this type of behavior. But again, I just think it's sad to admit, but I think it's just gonna happen.
Yeah, it is.
I don't like it, but it has to be.
And also, actually, as Peter pointed out, if anything in esports, we actually are being a little bit weird in the sense that, like, people complained a little bit. I'll give you an example, like Manchester City in England in football, it's obviously massively funded by the Saudis. Newcastle United is owned by them, right? People get a tiny bit pissy with them. They don't in the way they do to esports orgs. People do act like the esports org is supposed to be a family who represent all these things. Oh my God, if it's a giant football club, you know they're just taking money from anyone, mate. They're just trying to spend millions on players. And if it's your team, you just support them anyway. You don't really give a shit who sponsors them. So that's actually more of an esports thing. And by the way, that will go away very quickly when every esport just has betting in for years and years. People eventually will just take it as normal, and it will just be it won't even be a discussion, really. Like, no one in 10 years will be having discussions, should we kick it out? Because at that point, it'll just be one of the main income sources to the scene, unfortunately. So whether you like it or not, it's just sort of inevitable, isn't it? That's why I'm with you. If you don't like it, the angle really should be, because I don't think you fight a losing battle, say, don't let it in. What your angle should be, here's how we need to control how it comes in. That's your best chance at getting some of the ills that you don't want it to bring in, like limiting the harm, as they say.
Sure. Or if you're somebody who's completely against it, incentivize the team to not take those places.
Yeah, absolutely.
But support the team. By the way, the team that doesn't take.
I'd even say that could even be an angle if you were clever. Say you're one of the lesser teams, but your whole shit is, I don't like gambling, and I think my fans don't. Then make your team the only one that's crowdfunded or something, or you have something like, hey guys, help us stand against it. And in fact, we'll make maybe the joke is we have like an anti-gambling sponsor on our fucking thing that says don't do it. That could even be a cool angle. I think there was a small team in CS did something like that along those lines. Anyway. What is Peter's ugly point?
So my ugly point. Ugly. So I didn't. In theory, it should be Fnatic, but I just feel so Fnatic is so pathetic that I don't even want to talk about Fnatic. So I'm going to talk about GX instead. So going into playoffs, we talked about TH being really, really good going into playoffs. Let's talk about GX. So GX are a team that I think are kind of fraudulent going into playoffs, because they finished pretty high in the table, but this is a team that I think if you target their bot lane, they literally cannot win the game. It's literally impossible. I think that Jackie's seems like a perfectly nice guy, but like I have questions over whether he can carry the game. Lot has never been that guy off Rumble, right? If you give him Rumble, he's really, really insane on Rumble, but you take him off Rumble, he's not that guy who's going to kind of 1v9 the game. And I think that basically in the games where their bot lane is ahead, right, they pick that like Caitlyn Elise comp into MKOI and just murdered them, right? And I think that they can win that way. But I think if you are a team looking at GX going into playoffs, you think put no Jhin behind in the early game, and this team cannot win any games. And they finished the league, 6-5 joint with Heretics, Koi, and G2. But to me, they're the 4 team in this, and like they won a lot of games which they shouldn't have won this season. I mean, you alluded to this earlier, Thorin. I think it was the Shifters game where like Shifters threw absurdly hard against GX. Like there was a base race situation which they ended up GX ended up winning a game which they should no way have won in game 1. And there've been a couple of fraudulent wins like this, right? Like I think GX have I've written in my notes fraudulent wins, and GX have ended the season 6-5, and I have 3 question mark, which means like 3 fraudulent wins this season. One, and then you look at the other games. One of those was against Los Ratones. One of them was the game where they destroyed MKOI. And then I can't remember what the other win was, right? But I think this team is very, very shaky going into playoffs. I think that basically they found a way to play that hides their flaws, but at this point, it's concerning to me that even compared to last year, like last year, GX were a team that did well based on how their bot lane was doing, but it looks even worse this year, right? And I'm not sure whether it's the meta, like it's a bad meta for Lot. I'm not sure whether it's like Jackie's are just, teams are just punishing his inconsistencies really hard. But going into playoffs, like, okay, forget Fnatic, but this is the team that I'm most scared of going into. I think that
As in they'll do badly.
Yeah, I think they're going to do really. I think it's going to be really, really rough. And they lost to KCB, and honestly, if I'm GX, looking how shaky their split has been, there's always the excuse, oh, it was a meaningless game, we'd already locked playoffs and things like this. But if I've had the wins that I've had as GX this season, I would have been using the KCB game to really send a message and to go really harsh on the players. Like, you must focus on this because we're in a really, really rough situation. But instead, they just kind of threw the game against KCB, and Yukino went off and it was kind of it was one of KCB's only win except for the Lost Returners game. And to me, the lack of care that they showed towards that game shows that I think they're even getting a bit complacent. Going into playoffs, and that really concerns me because this is a team, lots of fraudulent wins. They can still win games, they can win through bot, but I don't think any team that plays this team through playoffs is not going to be ganking bot before. They're going to be ganking bot before 5 minutes every single game because that this is how you stop this team from being able to.
So I guess what you're basically saying is that it's really telegraphed that if they don't have a hard-winning bot matchup, they're not gonna win the game somewhere else, unless I guess Lot is on Rumble, right? So in theory, it should be really easy to. It should be really easy for opponent to prepare against, right? Especially if you're KC, it should be fairly easy for them. I mean, honestly, I know we're supposed to argue against each other here, but I completely agree with you, Peter. I think you're on the spot here. I don't have much to add in terms of that. I think you're right. I think Sure, again, you could argue the last game doesn't mean anything, right? But if you're an org like GX, I would want to use every game possible to prove myself pretty much. And I don't think they have succeeded doing that. Then again, you're playing KC, one of the top teams for sure. So are you supposed to win? Maybe not, right? But I guess we'll just have to see in what fashion are they actually doing it, right? But I do agree with you. It should be a really easy opponent for KC to prepare against.
Yeah.
If you notice, I'm going to keep the same trend up that all weeks of LEC are not equal. And in fact, it's better to be good at the end than the beginning because the problem is GX started really hot. Well, here's one immediate reason why I can take some of that out. First of all, you didn't play some of the best teams at the beginning. You had a sort of a mixed schedule, sort of a medium one for my money. And then secondly, you kept the exact same roster. If you get the exact same roster, you should. That's actually one of the biggest things you can put against G2. It's bro, you kept the same team from last year. Why are you starting poorly? I understand why some of these other rosters, that's another massive feather to the Navi guys. They didn't even start badly with a totally fucking brand new roster with all different pieces that never played together from different countries. So if you have GX, you not only started well, the first few weeks it looked really good. That bot lane looked awesome. It was one of the better ones in the whole league. You had, as we're talking about, a defined formula and how to play. The problem is it didn't end up being that something you built on. That was all you had at the end. And actually by the end, as you saw, if people ever could match your bot lane or get to them early, you just weren't that dangerous a team actually. People didn't have to be that scared about the solo laners going crazy and winning the game. They don't have to look at your jungle and go, oh my God, what am I hitting? You don't have to worry about that, mate. Once you get to a certain point in the game, they're just a bit toothless. And also, I'm with you on this one too. I don't want to hear any bullshit about that KCB game, right? Spoiler, everyone make a note right now, because if you remember this, in the future, when someone makes Trivial Pursuit League of Legends Edition, the question for the really hard wedge will be this. KCB famously won only 2 games in LEC Versus in the beginning of 2026. One was against Lost Returners. Who was the other team? And no one will be answering it, because everyone will go, I don't know, was it SK or Shift? No, believe it or not, it was actually GX who started the split as one of the best teams in the whole league, and everyone thought it was a success story. So actually losing that one, it made you look silly. And even that quote, Peter, of yeah, but we've already made playoffs. By losing that game, you have to play the best team in the whole league in the opening BL3. Like I'm sorry, that's why that isn't like it doesn't matter. It does matter if you lose that game. You've now made it way more likely you lose the opening BO3 in a double elim format. Like, if you won that game, especially based on all the tiebreakers that had to play out, you could have ended up with a much easier. It could have ended up as a favourite in your opening match in the playoffs, whereas instead you put yourself in a hard spot. So I don't even buy that they did just experiment and who cares or whatever. They actually gave themselves arguably the worst matchup you can have right now in the opening round of the playoffs. So I just don't buy it. And then also, yeah, the downside actually of having the same roster and then showing a little bit of form at the beginning of the split and then none now is, how do I even have some delusional hope they're going to level up a whole bunch? I even did give a lot of the credit to Giotto. I thought, look, he hasn't even made a roster move. He hasn't took like some big guys. He tried to work with the same pieces. The problem is this team's just a bit limited. It's got a bit of a hard cap on it, which is why I'm a bit worried they didn't make one roster move. You know what I mean? I would have liked just one in there. You could keep, by the way, Bottling was the obvious part to keep. I'll even throw this in finally. I'll tell you what also is ugly, is if you hear the story, they wouldn't even have had John. Apparently he wanted to go back to Fnatic, and for whatever reason, that deal just didn't get done. One, bomber if you fucking upset, and then two, yeah, you're on fucking borrowed time, GX. You have to make use of this roster. You shouldn't even have that bot lane. And if you only had Noah, I don't fucking know, mate. He doesn't feel like the guy who just plays with any support. So I think if anything, you're locked in this roster. So I agree. It's not even bad. It's just underwhelming. Like, you know, you could have gotten tricked in the first week into thinking they were going to be a contender for the title. They probably aren't right now. And with you, they probably just instantly lose this immediate opening match. And then who the fuck knows who they play in the lower bracket? Like, at this point, it could actually be like Team Heretics or G2. They might even lose those games, mate. They might be out in last place in the playoffs.
Yeah, they play the loser. Well, if they lose, they play the loser of TH versus G2. And I would take TH in that game.
Those are winnable games for the opponent, absolutely. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So, my ugly point is going to be an obvious one, which is, and by the way, I actually called this out way before Los Ratones was involved in the tiebreaker scenario. I told everyone this tiebreaker system is fucking ass. I think I said it on week 1 of the season on Summoning Insight, because when I looked at it, if people don't know, in the past, the way tiebreakers worked is, if you won a certain amount of games, even if you ended in a tiebreaker, you were guaranteed an actual tiebreaker match, as in you play a match against the teams you're tie-breaking against, and then the winner of that goes through. Famously, in the past, it's been teams like Fnatic, or back in the day, there was a famous Vitality one, they lost in one of those. These have been iconic games everyone remembers that have been. The problem is they changed that rule and they made it, I actually think, the worst variant of it, which is you use tiebreakers that are based on things that happened in past matches. And in this particular case, the tiebreaker, the most important one, is head-to-head. That's why Los Ratones went out, if people don't get it, because they lost to Fnatic. That's when they fucked up right at the beginning of the whole split. And the reason why I already knew way before the Los Ratones bullshit, that was a terrible format, is this tiebreaker, if you actually look at it, in the end, because a lot of the big names like G2 didn't actually place at the top, this didn't seem obvious, but spoiler, if they keep this format in the future, this will happen. The dumbest part about this tiebreaker setup is, what if we both only won 3 games, right? I'll give you an example, or 4 games. In this case, it had to be like 5, I guess. Oh, fuck it then. We all 3 of our teams won 5 games. But let's say 3 of my wins were the top 3 teams in the league. That not only doesn't help me, it works against me because they're not involved in the tiebreaker. So essentially, I beat 3 of the top 5 teams. You beat me on all the bad teams, and we both end on 5. You have an advantage in that tiebreaker. Just because in 1v1 between me and you made it through. But here's what's weird about that. One of us isn't playing the playoffs anyway, so why does you beating me put you into the playoffs where they're all the teams that beat you? It's not even actually very logical or intuitive, is it? Like, actually, in theory, if we're just looking with our eyes, not like a 1 and a 0 on a scoreboard, we all value the team wins over the top teams more. That's what tells us, do you have potential? Could you have done something here? Would you have done a great job, etc.? So I actually think these tiebreaker rules are almost as bad as they can get. And even when people say, oh, the constraint, I'm sorry, if this system, you just make it so there's an extra day, could have been Tuesday or a Monday, in this case, it was actually weekend, so it could have been Monday. You just make it so there's an extra day and you just play the match. If you're going to do this format, just have the actual physical tiebreaker. Because I'll tell you what, even though they would have complained anyway, Los Ratones fans would not have complained as much if they'd have just played Fnatic in a tiebreaker and then they'd have lost to them. Then it would be a lot harder to go, oh, this is bullshit. If you'd have just actually lost the game, I think that does somewhat soothe a lot of complaints. Whereas if you do lose in this way, this is why it feels bullshit. Because that's why, even though it was really petulant, that's why Los Ratones fans were like hating on Fnatic who got through, because Fnatic didn't do them a favour and beat G2 or whatever. Like in that scenario, it would be a lot more satisfying if your team played that match. You know what I mean? So I think LEC tiebreak has to be ugly. I can't see who thinks it good. Does anyone like this format? I don't think anyone does. Emtest.
I mean, I was thinking about the idea that you mentioned because I had the same idea. Like, what is essentially like stopping them from just playing the tiebreakers on another day? I guess it's like production costs and like just moving everything on like.
And to be fair, they have tried
to.
to cut costs on that stuff recently, so I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, I could definitely see that, but it also like it would create a lot more like incentives to actually watch those tiebreakers, right? Because now
You could argue the Los Ratones tiebreaker would be the most viewed match of the entire fucking split. You could argue that, right? I think it would be.
Yeah, no, I mean for sure. I again like that's like the only argument I can see like against it. Maybe they just wanna cut costs, which like I can understand, but if the goal is to make the product like more hyped and like they want to give incentives for people to watch, then this surely like has to be a good solution, right?
I think so.
Like
Yeah.
I at least would I would turn up for even teams that I'm like not very like interested in. I would also turn up for like a deciding final like day of like a tiebreaker, like best of one, everything goes. Like that's
Yes.
already like very hype in itself. Instead of just letting the results like because as you mentioned, like the results are kind of speaking against you, right? If you beat all the top teams, but you're like even with the teams that you lost to, then okay, it sucks for you. Like like it's just sad.
I mean, I hate this tiebreaker rule because it makes me have empathy with some of the worst people I've ever seen on the internet, right? Like there's some really like toxic
Sure.
LR fans. Like not all LR fans are
Yeah, of
toxic, but
course.
there are definitely some really real shitheads, right? Like on this, and like I kind of sympathize with them. They beat G2, they beat MKOI. They're not going to get the chance to go and show the it in playoffs. They've kind of put themselves in a situation. Maybe it's not the worst end to the story. It's a bittersweet finish, but maybe it's better than getting blasted 0-2, 0-2 in the playoffs. I don't think that would have happened, but I think they would have probably not made it too far in the playoffs. But these rules, firstly, they're garbage. Secondly, there was no problem with having tiebreakers in Spring Split last year. Because I remember that I had a problem with this last year because in Spring Split, it was Vitality versus Heretics in a playoff for the 6-7 spot. And Vitality had been at the KC homestand. They traveled back the day before, and then they had to play the tiebreaker, like having arrived back late, and that was considered fine. That's considered fine. It was a pretty hype match. It was watched, and they actually had that tiebreaker, but they decided to remove that tiebreaker now. Like to me, that's very questionable. When you have best of ones, when it's single round robin, naturally some games are going to matter more than other games. Right? Like, I don't think KC threw the game against Heretics, but I do think that it's hard to play at maximum intensity when you've already secured first place. Like, it's not that you're trying to throw the game, because let me put it to you like this. Maybe the orgs hate each other, right? But if you're a player, you're not going to be on that org forever, right? Like, if I'm a KC player, I don't think that my entire career is going to be on KC. And if I go and throw that game deliberately, I'm going to make so many enemies in the scene that next time I'm a free agent, they may just be, oh, I remember that guy 3 years ago. He threw a game against me, and now, like I'm fucked because they're going to block me from every single team. Like he's going to make a condition, and for me signing, and you just don't do that as a coach and a player. That's not even in the back of your mind, even no matter what's being said on Twitter and on co-streams and things like this. Right? Like as a player, you try your best. It's just naturally you're not going to be 100%. Like it's just how human beings work. You don't have that adrenaline. You're going to be playing at 80%, right? But the problem is, because you have these shitty tiebreakers, you are now in a system that factors that in a negative way against you, right? Because it means that as the season progresses, the more games you play against top teams that have already secured playoffs, the easier your running is, right? And this system that they have, where you don't play the game, means that situations more, like potential for impropriety exists, even though I know that as a coach or as a player, it's never even a thought, it's never even a twinkle in my eye. But the fact that this can make it look like bad things, bad things are afoot, and make fans lose. What it does is it makes fans lose faith in the competitive integrity of your league, right? Which undermines your product, which puts you, which is a bad thing in the in the long run, right? Like it undermines the value of your league, and it just happens, that Los Ratones, the other team, they get fucked this season. So people are like, oh, it's worse. It's like the absolute worst. But what would happen if like GX were the team that get fucked? It's the same thing, like they're still getting fucked by a bad system. It's just that Los Ratones got screwed this time, and therefore it matters.
And it could have been G2 even, Peter. I think if G2 had lost, then people all would have gone mental over this rule.
Yeah, I fully agree. And like to me, this is the problem. Like, this is why you have to have these tiebreakers. Like, and you have to find space to come and play these games if you're going to run this best of one round robin. If you want to do 2 groups of 4, maybe it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter as much. But you have a round robin best of one that goes over 4 weeks. It's just natural that some teams are going to lock playoffs earlier. Like, if anything, LEC was lucky this year that teams like G2, Fnatic, and MKOI were just kind of trolling around in the mid-split, because it meant that the games mattered more. But imagine you had a situation where KC, MKOI, and G2 were bad, but like a different world where G2 were not bad. With those 3 teams lock playoffs by the end of week 3. Then it's going to be really different. And you've had it in the past where G2 have just trolled. They trolled at the end of the season because they've already locked playoffs. And it didn't matter because it's funny, right? But now it matters because back in the day, it was like Excel missing out. But now it's Los Ratones missing out. And that's, that's what causes the problem, right?
Yeah, by the way, it's not even, as you say, it's not even, it has to be match fixed. The problem is, imagine being the team where your life is in someone else's hands, but that team's already won the league and is like fucking can't fail to come first. And at that point, they're just not trying 100%. Or even worse, they do an experimental draft or they try something out for player. That's the worst feeling in the world. It doesn't feel like a proper match at that point in time. I'm with you.
Yeah, especially for fans.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely makes a point, right? I like your point about like the human brain, like not being able to, like, you can't force yourself to play at 200% if the stakes for you are completely relevant, right? So I don't think it's match fixing. I just think it's just the nature of the human. Like if the game matters 0 to you, but for the opponent it matters 200%, and it's like win or die pretty much. Of course, they're gonna be able to lock in like more naturally, right? So it just comes down to the fact that this thing, like, this plays a bad part in the tiebreakers, right? Because a lot of other teams are getting fucked for something that you can't really control, but it's also not in your hands, right? So I agree. I mean, it kind of brings me to another topic, because I talked about like production costs, right, and like everything. But I also feel like the LEC studio is like kind of like an outdated thing at this point. I mean, they're doing like roadshows now, which I think are great, right? But if they're doing that, which they're like bringing a lot of hype and people are actually like coming, I guess it's like very closed still. It's only like in France and Spain, right, where they can actually like get an audience, maybe. But then if I'm not sure what's like stopping them from just having like a lot of these regular season games as like strictly like online, and then you have like playoffs and on live, or I think that could just cover a lot of cost as well. And to me, it doesn't matter if you're not studio or not for like regular season
especially
games.
if you're all in Berlin anyway, and it's just connecting to a server. Like, exactly. Just have the server in the studio like that, and have a skeleton crew. By the way, that even probably is, you're getting into it. That probably is what the LEC will be in a year or two, mate. It'll be live shows and then probably an online component like this, especially if the broadcast has fuck all massive appeal compared to core streamers. Yeah, could even be.
But the tragedy from all of this is that, Riot, you took a gamble, went back on their franchising agreement, fucked over the league, whatever you want to say it, or they did a successful thing or whatever to put Los Ratones in. And because their rules are so dog shit, they missed out on the biggest audience that they, this game, a Fnatic versus Los Ratones tiebreaker, fucking hell, man. That would have been mega hype. And the funny thing is that you listen to Fnatic's interviews after the G2 game, and they don't even think they're good. They don't even think they deserve to be in playoffs, man. Like, I've never seen a team look like, it feels really, really doomed. So it would have been a banger to watch. I would have said that. But yeah. It's a tragedy.